Chapter 1 Scholar Meng Hao. The state of Zhao was a small nation. Like other South Heaven nations, its people admired the great Tang in the eastern lands and Chang'an. The king and scholars alike cherished this admiration. They could almost see it, standing atop the Tower of Tang in the capital city, far away. This April was mild. Light winds drifted from the Qiang Dai flutes of the northern reaches, crossing the lands of the great Tang. Under the twilight sky, they lifted fog-like dust across Mount Daqing in the state of Zhao, falling upon a young man sitting on the peak. He was lean, about 16 or 17 years old, holding a bottle gourd and wearing a clean blue scholar's robe. Not tall, dark-skinned, he had bright, intelligent eyes, yet a frown hid all that intelligence. He seemed lost. Failed again, he sighed. His name was Meng Hao, an average student from Yunji County at the mountain's foot. Years ago, his parents went missing, leaving him little. Education was costly, he had almost nothing. I've taken the imperial exams 3 years in a row. I read sage writings until I couldn't stomach them. Maybe that isn't the path for me after all. He looked down at the gourd bottle, eyes bleak. My dream of becoming an official and getting rich fades further each day. I might as well forget the great Tang. What good is a scholar? He laughed bitterly, gazing at the bottle gourd. Fear crept in as he sat on the silent mountaintop. What would he do in the future? Where would he go? Perhaps a high-ranking official would take notice, or a beautiful maiden. Or would he keep retaking the exams? There were no answers. A teenager consumed by this lost feeling, he was truly afraid. Even town teachers earn only a few pieces of silver, worse than Uncle Wang's carpenter shop. Had I realized this, I could have apprenticed with him instead of starving now. He grew silent for a while. I have little food or money left. I owe Steward Joe 3 pieces of silver. What am I to do? He raised his head to the blue sky, endless and vast like his hidden future. After a moment, Meng Hao withdrew a slip of paper from his robe. He read it carefully, placed it in the gourd bottle, then stood and threw the gourd down the mountain. At the mountain's base was a wide river that never froze in winter, and was said to flow all the way to the great Tang. Standing atop the mountain, Meng Hao watched the gourd bottle drift down the river, staring intently. For a moment, he glimpsed his mother and childhood happiness. The gourd carried his dreams and hopes. Perhaps one day someone would pick it up, open it, and read the note. Regardless of what I do, be it study or work, I will keep on living. This was his nature, intelligent, determined. Without these traits, he couldn't have survived his parents' departure. He raised his head skyward, stubborn determination deepening in his eyes. He turned to descend the mountain. At that moment, a weak voice drifted from a nearby cliff, borne on the wind, almost too faint to hear. Help, help! Meng Hao stopped, shocked, then listened carefully. As he concentrated, the cry grew clearer. Help! He walked forward until he nearly reached the peak's edge. Peering over, he saw a person wedged in a crevice halfway down the cliff. Pale face twisted in fear and desperation, the youth cried for help. You're Meng Hao, right? Help, Scholar Meng, help me. It was a teenager who, spotting Meng Hao, cried out in relief. Wang Yaokai? Meng Hao's eyes widened. He was the son of Uncle Wang, who owned the carpentry shop in town. How did you end up here? Meng Hao studied the crevice. The cliff was steep, nearly impossible to descend. The slightest carelessness would send a climber falling into the river. At that flow rate, falling meant certain death. We're not alone. Others from nearby towns are here, Wang Yaokai said urgently. Brother Meng, help us. There's no time to talk. He dehung from the crevice too long. His hands trembled. Only his companions gripping his shirt kept him from falling. His face paled. Meng Hao grasped the danger. He'd climbed alone and had no rope. How could he save anyone? Then he spotted rattan vines covering the mountainside. Frail as he was, it took 2 hours to find a vine long enough. Breathing heavily, he dragged it to the cliff and lowered it, calling out Wang's name. You still haven't told me how you got down there, Meng Hao said as he lowered the vine. By flying, another young man called out, half emerging from a nearby crevice. He looked sharp and spoke boldly. Bullshit, you can fly, mocked Meng Hao, pulling the vine back up a bit. If you can fly down here, then why don't you fly back up? Don't listen to him, Wang Yaokai said urgently. Lower it back down. We were captured by a flying woman. She means to take us to some sect as servants. More bullshit, said Meng Hao dismissively. Only immortals from legends can do that. Who credits such tales? The books he'd read told of men enriched by immortals, all lies, he'd thought. Just as the rattan reached the crevice, Wang caught it. Then Meng Hao felt a sudden chill at his back. The temperature plummeted, winter seemed to return. He shivered, slowly turned, and screamed. He stumbled forward into emptiness, falling. A woman in a long silver robe stared at him, her face pale. It was impossible to tell her age. Extremely beautiful, she radiated a coldness, as if she'd just risen from a tomb. Sometimes when you find certain things with certain qualities, it is fate. Her voice scraped like bones. She possessed strange power. Looking into her eyes, Meng Hao felt ice cold, as if she saw through him, as if he could hide nothing. As her words hung in the air, she shook her sleeve. A greenish wind swept up Meng Hao. He flew down the cliff with her. His mind went blank. When they reached the crevice, the woman waved her hand and threw him inside. The woman and the wind halted. Wang and his 3 friends scurried backward in fright. The woman stood silent. She raised her head and glanced at the rattan vine. Meng Hao stood trembling with fear. He glanced around. The crevice was narrow, cramped with just a handful of people. His eyes fell on Wang and the 2 other young men. One was the clever boy, the other, pudgy and clean. Both shivered near tears from fear. "I was short one person," said the pale-faced woman. She fixed her gaze on Meng Hao. "I'll put you in with them." "Who are you?" Meng Hao asked, concealing his fear. Educated and strong-willed, he steeled himself and did not panic. The woman said nothing. She raised her hand and the green wind reappeared. It lifted the young men skyward and they flew up with the woman, disappearing into the sky. Mount Daqing stood alone, straight and tall, merging into twilight's darkness. The blood drained from Meng Hao's face. He floated within the green wind, crossing the sky. Wind filled his mouth. He couldn't breathe. A word appeared in his head. Immortals. He held his breath, counting to 10 until his lungs burned. Then he passed out. When he woke, they'd landed on a green stone platform halfway up a mountain. Rolling mountains surrounded them. Clouds and fog drifted about, the celestial realm, not the mortal world. The peaks gleamed strange and beautiful. Wang and the others woke, shaking with fear, staring at the woman's back. Standing before her were 2 cultivators wearing long green robes. Both appeared in their 20s. Their sunken eyes held fear-inspiring green pupils. "Excellent work, elder sister Su," said one man obsequiously. "You found 4 talented young servants." "Take them to the servants' quarter," the woman said coldly, not glancing at the young men. Her body transformed into rainbow light and vanished into the mountains. By this time Meng Hao had recovered. He stared at where the woman vanished. An expression hadn't crossed his face in 16 years. His blood boiled. "Servants," he thought. "If the work is for immortals, the pay must be good." Now that death wasn't the goal, he stepped forward. "Sister Su has reached the 7th level of qi condensation," the second cultivator lamented. The sect priest bestowed a wind pennant on her, so despite not reaching foundation establishment, she can fly. He looked down arrogantly at the youths. "You too," he said, pointing. "Follow me to the southern servants' quarters." "What is this place?" Wang asked, trembling as the cultivator pointed. "The Reliance Sect." Chapter 2: The Reliance Sect. The Reliance Sect, once first among the 4 great sects in the state of Zhao's southern reaches, had declined in recent years. Though still famous in the southern domain, it no longer held its former glory. Compared to other state of Zhao sects, it was now inferior. Actually, it hadn't always been called the Reliance Sect. 1,000 years ago, a cultivator who shook the southern domain called himself Patriarch Reliance and forced the sect to adopt his name. He trampled the other state of Zhao sects, plundering their treasures and reigning unrivaled. Now Patriarch Reliance had been missing 400 years. Were it known he was dead, another sect would have consumed it. The sect had faded from glory. Lacking resources and facing pressure from the other 3 sects, it resorted to kidnapping servants instead of recruiting openly. Meng Hao followed the green-robed man along winding mountain paths. The landscape was garden-like, strange rocks and odd trees scattered about. Amid the scenery, ornate buildings with jade roofs rose from clouds and mist. Meng Hao sighed repeatedly. The fat teenager beside him wailed constantly, spoiling the mood. "I'm finished. I want to go home," muttered the fat teenager, tears streaming. "Mantu and fish wait for me. Damn it. I want to inherit my family's land, grow rich, take concubines, not be a servant here." After a moment, the green-robed man turned. "If you spout one more bit of nonsense," he said coldly, "I'll cut your tongue out." The fat teenager trembled, eyes wide with fear, and shut his mouth. Watching this, Meng Hao reconsidered the situation. Stubborn, he took a breath and said nothing. Halfway up the mountain, they reached flat buildings emerging from rolling fog. 7 or 8 youths in hemp robes sat outside, looking exhausted. As they approached, the youths noticed them silently. A young man in a light blue robe sat on a nearby crag. His long, horse-like face seemed familiar. His robe was finer than the others. Though cold-faced, he stood and saluted the green-robed man as they approached. "Greetings, elder brother." "These are two newly arrived servants," said the green-robed man impatiently. "Please arrange for their accommodations." He turned and left without glancing at them. He sat again, crossing his legs, and glanced coldly at the two. "This is the northern servants' quarter," he said coldly. "The Reliance sect does not support slackers. You will work for 30 years before leaving. Escape means death from wild beasts in these mountains. Retrieve your uniform. You are now isolated from the mortal world. Work peacefully as servants." The fat teenager trembled, face filled with despair. Meng Hao remained calm, yet his eyes held an indescribable spark. The horse-faced man noticed. He'd held this post for years and seen many captured youths, but never one so calm. "If you have good temperament, you may not labor the full 30 years. Practice cultivation in your free time. Reach the first level of qi condensation and you'll be promoted to the outer sect." He flicked his sleeve, and two hemp robes appeared. Each bore a thumb-sized wooden badge engraved with servant. With the robe was a small booklet, Qi Condensation Manual. Seeing the title, Meng Hao breathed hard. He recalled the green-robed man mentioning the cold-faced woman's 7th level of qi condensation. "We reach outer sect at 1st level, yet that woman's at 7th. What is qi condensation? This is the path to immortality spoken of in tales." This payment, not money but worth hundreds of gold, was extraordinary. His excitement rose. He wrapped the badge and booklet in the robe. "You live in East 7th house. Starting tomorrow, cut wood, 10 logs each every day. Don't eat until finished." He closed his eyes. Meng Hao saluted with clasped fists and walked toward the house, the fat teenager following. The building was a Sohe courtyard that had been expanded. They located the 7th unit and entered. The room was small. It held a table and 2 small beds, simple but tidy. The fat teenager sat on a bed, then burst into tears. "About 12 or 13, he cried loudly, surely echoing outside. "My father's a lord and I should be too, not a servant." He was distraught, his body trembling. "Stop crying," Meng Hao said. "Consider it's not so bad. We're working for immortals. Think of the envy." He closed the door. "I don't want to work for others," he replied. "My marriage is arranged, engagement gifts sent. My bride hasn't even married me and she's already a widow." He grew more heartbroken. A strange expression crossed Meng Hao's face. The boy was young, he thought, promised a wife yet never touched one. He sighed, thinking of wealth. The boy's family was so rich he never worried, while I have nothing. Even after selling my home, I owe Steward Joe much. Thinking of the money made him laugh. Joe couldn't chase him here, not unless strong enough. Otherwise he'd be dead when Meng Hao left. The more he thought, the better he felt. No worries about money, lodging, or food. He had payment worth hundreds of gold before even starting work. In this dwelling place of immortals, he'd been unexpectedly rescued. The boy's crying annoyed him. He pulled the manual from the robe and read. The first line shocked him. "A person should have something to rely on. If you are a mortal who desires riches and titles, if you are a cultivator who wants to live a life free from worry, join my Reliance sect. You can rely on me." The introduction was signed by Patriarch Reliance. Few words yet filled with indescribable power, an invitation and description both. Meng Hao felt numb, then everything made sense. So that's what the sect means. People must find something to rely on. When they find the Reliance sect, they become rich and powerful, free from worry. Had he an official to rely on, he'd never have failed the exams thrice. His respect for the unseen Patriarch Reliance grew. One sentence opened a door in his life. "I must find someone to rely on here, then I won't worry." His eyes brightened as he scanned. He lost track of time, the boy's cries fading away. Around midnight, the boy cried himself to sleep. His snores reverberated like thunder. Meng Hao reluctantly closed the manual. Despite tiredness, his eyes gleamed with vigor. "This book isn't worth 100 gold, it's worth 1,000. For one who dreamed of becoming a rich official, 1,000 gold was worth nearly his life." The snoring suddenly stopped. The boy sat up, waving his arms, muttering, "I'm gonna beat you to death. How dare you steal my mantu? I'm gonna bite you to death. How dare you steal away my wife?" Eyes closed, he got out of bed, waving fists. He grabbed the table and bit it hard, leaving a deep mark, then returned to bed and snored. Meng Hao watched, confirming the boy had been sleepwalking. He eyed the bite mark, noting never to provoke the boy while asleep. He inched away and returned to the manual, excited. The ninth level of chi condensation is the path to immortality. Here I might become an immortal, the greatest payment possible. Become an immortal and I'll surely become rich. He gripped the manual, eyes shining. He'd found another path besides study. The door was kicked open. A loud harumph sounded. Chapter 3. Promotion to the Outer Sect. You went asleep early. Time to wake for Grandpa Tiger. The door shook open. A tall, strong man in servant's robes glared at Meng Hao and the fat teenager. Starting today, he said angrily, you two bastards will chop 10 trees per day for me each. Otherwise, Grandpa Tiger will flay you alive. Greetings, Grandpa Tiger, said Meng Hao, scrambling up nervously. Maybe you could quiet her down. The man fixed his eyes on him. Quiet farts, you think I'm speaking too loud. Looking at his fierce bearing and strength, Meng Hao hesitated. But, elder brother assigned us 10 trees per day. Then chop an extra 10 for me, he said coldly. Meng Hao's mind spun. He just arrived and was already bullied. He didn't want to give in, but the man was too strong and he too weak. Then he glanced at the table bite marks. Recalling the fat teenager's strength during sleepwalking, he had an idea. He suddenly yelled. Fatty, someone's stealing your mantu and your girl. The fat teenager sat up, eyes closed, shouting with furious savagery. Who's stealing my mantu? Who's stealing my wife? He leaped up. I'll beat you to death, I'll bite you to death. He struck randomly. The big man stared in shock, then stepped forward to slap the boy. You dare to shout at Grandpa Tiger. His slap landed, but the man cried out. The fat teenager, eyes closed, had bitten his arm. No matter how he shook, the boy wouldn't let go. Stop biting me, damn it, stop biting. A servant, not a cultivator, strong but now in agony, sweat covering him. He punched and kicked but couldn't loosen the boy's jaw. The harder he hit, the deeper the bite. His flesh mangled, about to tear. His screams drifted outside. A cold voice shouted. What's the ruckus? The horse-faced young man. As soon as the big man heard, he trembled in fear. Despite the pain twisting his face, he stopped screaming. Upsetting elder brother isn't wise, the big man said hurriedly. There's no benefit to this. Stop biting me. I don't need the 10 logs. Meng Hao was shocked by the boy's intensity and wanted to stop it. He walked forward and lightly slapped the fat teenager, whispering. The mantu's back and so is your girl. The boy relaxed and released his jaw. Continuing to punch the air, he returned to bed, face bloody, and fell back asleep. The big man gave a nervous glance at the fat teenager and left without a word. Meng Hao stood gaping, admiring the fat teenager, then returned to bed with great care and slept. The following morning at dawn. As morning sun filled the sky, bells rang in the air. Strange power seemed to carry them. Hearing it, people woke and worked. The fat teenager woke. He looked at the marks on his body. He touched his face. What happened last night? Why does my whole body hurt? Did someone beat me? Meng Hao dressed quietly before speaking. Nothing happened. Everything was normal. Why does my face feel swollen? Mosquitoes. Then how come there's blood on my mouth? You fell out of bed several times. Meng Hao opened the door and stopped back. Look, fatty, he said seriously, you need to grind your teeth more often, sharpen them. Oh, my dad used to say the same thing, he said in surprise, gingerly putting on his robes. Meng Hao and the fat teenager walked into sunlight and began their life as servants in the Reliance sect, chopping trees. Each chopped 10 trees. Around the northern servants' quarter, wild slopes covered with trees stretched to the horizon. Not big but dense, spreading like an ocean. Carrying his servant's axe, Meng Hao rubbed his shoulder. His arm felt numb and painful. The axe was heavy. The fat teenager panted as they climbed. Eventually they found a suitable spot and chopping sounds rang out. My dad is super rich, said the fat teenager with a long face. I'm gonna be super rich too, not a servant. Immortals are strange. They have magic. Why do they need fire? Why do they need us chopping trees? Unlike the talkative fat teenager, Meng Hao was too tired to speak. Sweat poured like rain. Poor in Yunji County, he'd eaten little meat. His body was weak. After about 30 minutes, he leaned against a tree, breathing heavily. He watched the fat teenager work. Exhausted, trembling, but still cursing and chopping. Younger than Meng Hao, but much stronger. Meng Hao rested, shaking his head bitterly. He pulled out the chi condensation manual and examined it. Following the manual, he attempted to sense heaven and earth's spiritual energy. Soon it was dusk. Meng Hao had cut 2 trees. The fat teenager ate. Together they had enough for 1 meal. The fat teenager fetched food which they shared, then fell asleep exhausted. The boy's snores filled the room. Meng Hao struggled up, eyes filled with determination. Ignoring hunger and exhaustion, he picked up the manual and read again. I used to study for exams, staying up until dawn. I'm used to hunger. This life is tiring, but at least I have a goal. After failing the imperial exams, I won't fail at cultivation. Stubborn persistence filled his eyes. He studied. He continued until late night, then slept without knowing when. His dreams were filled with sensing heaven and earth's spiritual energy. Bells woke him in the morning. He opened bloodshot eyes, yawned, got up. Along with the energetic fat teenager, he went back to chopping wood. Days passed until 2 months had gone. Meng Hao's wood felling grew. He could chop 4 trees daily. Most time was spent grasping spiritual energy. His eyes grew bloodshot. One evening in meditation, his body vibrated. Prickling numbness filled his limbs. Tiny wisps of invisible qi condensed in his flesh and blood, then seeped out. A strand of spiritual energy appeared inside him. It vanished almost instantly, but Meng Hao's eyes opened excitedly. His exhaustion disappeared. His body trembled as he clutched the manual. He hadn't eaten or slept much. All time outside chopping went to spiritual energy. Now, at last, results. He felt filled with power. 2 months passed. It was now the 8th month, summer. Scorching sunlight fell from the sky. Condense the qi, fuse and disperse it, open blood vessels and qi passages, resonate with heaven and earth. Noontime in the deep mountains near the Reliance sect. Meng Hao stoked the bonfire with one hand, held the qi condensation manual with the other, studying intently. He closed his eyes for about an hour, sensing the delicate qi strand within. The strand from 2 months ago, his treasure, clearly much thicker now. Using the mnemonics and technique, he meditated, letting the qi move through his body. After a short time, Meng Hao opened his eyes. The fat teenager approached quickly, carrying his axe. "Well, how is it?" panted the fat teenager as he ran up, fat but strong. "I still can't spread it through my whole body," said Meng Hao with a laugh. "But I'm confident I'll reach first-level qi condensation within a month." Belief filled him. "What I meant was, how is the chicken?" He licked his lips, looking at the bonfire. "Pretty much done," said Meng Hao, also licking his lips and pulling back the stoke branch. The fat teenager used his axe to dig the chicken out, fully cooked now. Fragrant aroma filled the air. They split it in half and ate ravenously. "Ever since you got spiritual energy," said the fat teenager, lips covered in grease, "you've caught wild chickens. The first 2 months were like a nightmare." This was his new habit, flattering Meng Hao. "Many get wild food, you just don't know." Meng Hao took a chicken leg bite, speech garbled. "AI, if you reach first-level qi condensation next week and become outer sect," said the fat teenager, face bitter. "What will I do? I don't understand mnemonics." He looked at Meng Hao expectantly. "Look, fatty, the only way home is to become outer sect," said Meng Hao, dropping the leg and meeting his eyes. The fat teenager sat quietly, then nodded with determination. 6 days flew by. It was night. The fat teenager slept. Meng Hao sat cross-legged, meditating. Outside chopping, he'd spent the past 3 months sensing spiritual energy. 2 months ago, the qi strand had first stirred. He breathed deeply, closing his eyes, causing the strand to circulate through his body. A loud sound reverberated in his head. Until now, he'd been unable to spread qi throughout. But just now, he'd succeeded, diffusing it everywhere. His body felt like floating. At that same moment, the horse-faced young man sitting outside slowly opened his eyes. He looked toward Meng Hao's house, then closed them again. At dawn, under envious eyes of the northern servants' quarter, Meng Hao walked out of the room that had been his home for 4 months. He stood in front of the horse-faced youth. The fat teenager didn't come. He remained in the doorway, determination filling his eyes. "You reached first-level qi condensation in 4 months. Not outstanding, but not stupid." The horse-faced young man's expression was no longer cold. "Now you're going to the outer sect. I must explain the rules. Every month you'll get spirit stones and medicinal pills, but taking things by force and ganging up are permitted. There's a public area, some call it the killing zone. You will need to look out for yourself." He lifted his right hand. A jade slip shot out and hovered before Meng Hao. He grabbed it. "Imbue spiritual energy into it, and it will lead you to the treasure pavilion to register your promotion." He closed his eyes. Meng Hao said nothing. He saluted with clasped fists and turned, glancing at the fat teenager. They looked at each other a moment. Emotion welled in Meng Hao's heart. He chose not to dwell on it. He pinched the jade slip. It glowed green and gradually floated forward. Meng Hao followed it, slowly leaving the servants' quarter. He trod a narrow road leading from the main gate, walking toward the mountain's foot. Eventually, he reached an area unknown to him in 4 months. The Reliance sect had 4 main mountains, east, west, north, and south peaks. Vast mountain chains surrounded them. Halfway up each was a servant's quarter. Meng Hao had been at the northern quarter. The way further up was protected by defensive spells, home to inner sect disciples and elders. Each mountain was the same. The flat area between held countless houses of the outer sect. The Reliance sect differed from others. Outer sect at the foot, servants halfway up. A sect rule patriarch Reliance created for unknown reasons. From a distance, the entire area seemed filled with rolling fog. Upon entering, it vanished. Before him stretched carved balustrades and marble steps, lofty buildings, green stone roads. Outer sect disciples in green robes bustled about. A few noticed Meng Hao as he passed. Some shot him contemptuous glances, devoid of good intent. He felt stared at by wild beasts, recalling what the horse-faced elder brother said about the outer sect. Soon he reached a black building in the outer sect's southern section. 3 stories tall, carved from jade-like black stone, nearly transparent. As Meng Hao approached, the door opened silently. A wizened middle-aged man walked out in a deep green robe, shrewd expression on his face. He lifted his right hand and grabbed. The jade slip flew into it. He examined it, then spoke languidly. Meng Hao promoted to outer sect. He receives a house, green robe, spirit tablet, and bag of holding. The spirit tablet enters the treasure pavilion to retrieve a magic item. He waved, and a gray bag appeared in Meng Hao's hands. He glanced at it, recalling an outer sect disciple he'd passed. That man had a similar bag at his waist. The shrewd man looked at Meng Hao and instantly knew he was unfamiliar with outer sect ways. Unfamiliar with a bag of holding. Feeling a bit bad, he said coolly, "Imbue spiritual energy into the bag and you can pack many things." Meng Hao imbued the bag with spiritual energy. It grew blurry, and he glimpsed a space inside about half his size. A green robe, jade slip, and other objects were there. His interest was piqued. This bag was worth at least 100 gold, clearly immortal craft. He concentrated. The jade slip appeared in his hand. Focusing more, he found a map of the outer sect inside. In a remote corner was his house. "Look at it later," said the shrewd man coldly. "The treasure pavilion is open, and you haven't entered yet." Meng Hao stuffed the bag into his robe and looked at the pavilion's open door. He sucked in a deep breath and stepped in, filled with anticipation. As soon as he entered, his expression changed. He gasped. Chapter 4: A Copper Mirror. The treasure pavilion overflowed with riches that dazzled the eye. Jade shelves held bottles, swords, ornaments, and jewelry. Meng Hao's heart raced, blood rushing to his head. He stood dumbfounded. In his short life, Meng Hao had never seen such wealth. The sight dizzied him. He found himself imagining grabbing it all and fleeing. "The value is priceless," murmured Meng Hao. "Working for immortals has such rewards." He walked past the jade shelves, stretching his head forward unconsciously. He wondered if the 3rd floor held even more treasures. "Immortals are so rich," Meng Hao sighed. Then his eyes caught something strange. On one jade shelf lay a copper mirror. There were traces of corrosion on it. It didn't glitter. Compared to the treasures around it, it seemed worthless. Surprised, Meng Hao picked it up. It seemed ordinary, something from the mortal world. Yet it lay here in the treasure pavilion, so it must have value. "Junior brother truly has insight," said a voice from behind him. The shrewd-looking man now stood watching the mirror. He continued warmly, "That you chose this mirror shows you were destined to do so. There are many legends regarding it. Only those with good fortune and past life virtue can possess it. You are such a person. With this mirror you can command heaven and earth." As the man spoke, he sighed repeatedly. His voice held strange power, compelling Meng Hao to listen. "This mirror," Meng Hao looked down at it, a strange expression on his face. It bore corrosion instead of carvings, obscuring its surface. "Junior brother, don't judge it by its blur. True spiritual treasures conceal themselves in humble forms. The more humble they appear, the more precious they are." As Meng Hao moved to replace the mirror, the man rushed forward to stop him. He looked seriously at Meng Hao. "Junior brother, the fact that you picked up this object shows that you were destined to do so. Will you really put it back just because it looks ordinary? I have overseen the treasure pavilion for many years, and I know the origin of all items here. Many years ago, this copper mirror caused a great commotion in the state of Zhao. It was created from a ray of light that fell from the heavens. After acquiring it, Patriarch Reliance studied it in secret, believing it a heaven treasure. Yet he couldn't unlock it. He concluded it was fated to find someone who would trample heaven and earth." It startled Meng Hao to hear the name of Patriarch Reliance. He had just entered the outer sect, and there were many things he wasn't familiar with. He began to hesitate. Patriarch Reliance studied it but couldn't understand it. Your words are incorrect, junior brother. Allow elder brother to explain. Patriarch Reliance's failure proves its uniqueness. Before you, 10 people took it. None understood it, yet none regretted the attempt. What if you are the person destined to possess the mirror? In any case, if you take it, you can rest at ease. Of your fellow disciples who took the mirror, most came back within 3 months, and I let them exchange it for something else. After working with me some time, you will find I am easy to deal with. I don't burden disciples. If you take it but can't unlock its mysteries, you can return it any time and exchange it for something else. But if you abandon it and you were destined for it, you'll regret it eternally. The shrewd-looking man stared intently at Meng Hao. When he saw him hesitating, he laughed. New disciples were always the easiest marks. A good story and flowery words and their hearts would race. But Meng Hao had studied since childhood and was intelligent. He saw through the man's false sincerity. The mirror wasn't as described. But the man blocked his exit, determined to stop him from returning it. Even dropping it would change nothing. He began to regret picking it up. "Junior brother," he said, his face stern, his voice low, "don't violate the rules on your first day. When you pick something up in the treasure pavilion, you are not permitted to put it down." The shrewd-looking man felt that enough was enough. This was his usual method to get people to take the mirror. He waved his wide sleeve, and a whistling wind swept Meng Hao out of the treasure pavilion. There was a crashing sound as the main door slammed shut. The voice of the shrewd-looking man echoed from inside. "I'm soft-hearted when it comes to fellow disciples. If you truly are not destined to have the mirror, then you can return it in a few days." Frowning, Meng Hao looked up at the closed door, then sighed. He looked down at the mirror. If Patriarch Reliance had studied it, it must have value. He tucked it into his robe and walked away, casting one last hateful glance at the pavilion. He walked the green paths using his Jade slip's directions. By noon, he found his house on the north border of the outer sect, surrounded by other dwellings. He pushed the door open, it slammed against the wall. Inside lay a bed and a desk. He stood there, content. This was far superior to his room in the servants' quarter. He sat cross-legged on the bed, took a deep breath, and pulled out the mirror. He studied it until sunset. After lighting an oil lamp, he continued studying but learned nothing of its purpose. The mirror remained utterly ordinary. As night deepened, Meng Hao set the mirror aside and gazed at the moon. He thought of the fat teenagers snoring and found himself missing it. The moon's rays touched his window. All was silent but for wind rustling leaves. Meng Hao took a deep breath. He had entered a new world. He murmured to himself, "I will never again be a scholar in Yunji County. I've become a Reliance Outer Sect disciple." Meng Hao closed his eyes and sank into meditation, circulating spiritual energy. This had been his nightly practice for months. One difference between the outer sect and the servants' quarter was that no one prepared meals here. You had to feed yourself or starve, though none had ever starved in the Reliance outer sect. Upon the first stage of chi condensation, one could absorb spiritual energy of heaven and earth. This couldn't sate hunger, but it sustained life. Several days passed. One afternoon, while Meng Hao meditated, a scream cut the air. He opened his eyes and rushed to the window. An outer sect disciple lay on the ground, trampled repeatedly. Blood seeped from a chest wound. The attacker grabbed his bag of holding and left with a cold harumph. The disciple struggled up, ruthlessness burning in his eyes. He staggered away as onlookers watched coldly, their faces twisted in mockery. Meng Hao watched in silence. He'd seen such scenes daily, learning the outer sect's brutal ways. 7 days passed. Meng Hao witnessed more robberies, the violence making him withdrawn. Most shocking was witnessing a disciple at the second or third chi condensation level killed in the public area. He became increasingly cautious when venturing outside. Fortunately, his low cultivation base and lack of valuables kept others away. Meng Hao had reached a plateau in cultivation. The second level differed greatly from the first. His mortal body had begun to change, requiring far more spiritual energy to reach the next level. He also understood latent talent now. It was the body's capacity to absorb heaven and earth's spiritual energy. Greater talent meant faster cultivation, lesser talent, slower progress. He calculated it would take 1 or 2 years to reach the second level. The third level would require far longer. Of course, pills and spirit stones could accelerate his progress. This explained the constant theft in the outer sect. Monthly pill distributions made disciples targets. "The strong become stronger, the weak become weaker," said Meng Hao quietly. "This is how the Reliance sect grooms disciples for the inner sect." Early one morning, as dawn broke, Meng Hao meditated as always. With only determination and no resources, he persisted nightly. Bells suddenly reverberated through the sect, and he opened his eyes. These bells, Meng Hao's eyes focused. Realization dawned, and he shot from his room, finding disciples rushing in all directions. When these bells sound, the time has come for distribution of spirit stones and medicinal pills. It must be today. More disciples raced toward the bells. The entire outer sect converged. Pill distribution day, said Meng Hao, breathing heavily. He ran with the crowd to the square. It was monumental, bordered by 9 pillars carved with dragons. Atop the foremost pillar stood a platform 90 meters across, over which swirled a multicolored cloud filled with shapeless forms. Over 100 disciples in green robes murmured and glanced up at the cloud. Then the cloud dissipated, revealing an old man with a pockmarked face in a golden robe. His face was placid, emanating natural power and dignity. His eyes flashed like lightning. 2 figures in silver robes stood beside him, a handsome man with cold indifference on his face and a woman. When Meng Hao saw the woman, his pupils constricted. This woman was the one who had taken him from Daqing Mountain 3 months ago. Chapter 5. This kid isn't bad. It turns out Master Uncle Shangyuan is distributing the pills himself, along with inner sect disciples elder sister Su and elder brother Chen. You don't see this very often. Don't tell me there's an individual pill distribution this time. It must be. Look, elder brother Han Zong is here. He's the second-ranked disciple in the outer sect. His cultivation base has reached the 5th level of qi condensation. If he can reach the 7th level, then he will automatically become an inner sect disciple. Too bad elder brother Wang Tengfei isn't here. With elder brother Wang Tengfei's abilities, he wouldn't care for medicinal pills. When he joined the sect, he caused a sensation amongst the elders. He probably won't violate sect etiquette and will rely only on himself to enter the inner sect. Then there will be a 3rd inner sect disciple. Heh, this is gonna be fun. With individual pill distribution, the pill seals for 24 hours. Every 2 hours it glows brightly. Anyone who wants to fight for it can determine its location. Even if you grab the pill and run, you can't keep it hidden for 24 hours. Meng Hao listened to the discussions around him. Though new to this, he knew pill distribution sparked fierce fighting. In his half-month here, he'd seen plenty of fights and deaths. If today was really an individual pill distribution day, then the fighting would be even more intense. Meng Hao remained silent. At the 1st level of qi condensation, he had no chance of claiming the pill. The greedy faces around him taught him the true meaning of the law of the jungle. Quiet, said the old man in the gold robe. His voice was cold, and though he didn't speak loudly, it reverberated like a booming thunderclap. The cultivators below were shocked to their core, their ears humming. Meng Hao was most shocked and took time to recover. I am Shangyuan Ziu. Today, everyone in attendance will receive 1 spirit condensation pill and half a spirit stone. Shangyuan Ziu flicked his right arm, and hundreds of medicinal pills and spirit stones flew in all directions, landing perfectly before each person. Meng Hao gazed at the medicinal pill and spirit stone floating before him. A fragrant, intoxicating aroma washed over him. This was his first time seeing a medicinal pill or a spirit stone. The spirit stone was about the size of his fingernail, sparkling and almost translucent. Just looking at it could mystify a person. His heart raced. These 2 items must be worth thousands of pieces of gold. Without hesitation, Meng Hao reached out and grabbed the pill. He was about to swallow it when he noticed no one around him was doing so. His heart lurched. He looked down and saw the pill glowed faintly and was sealed with a strange mark. As Meng Hao stared at the pill in his hand, Shangyuan Ziu's voice once again rang out from the platform. There is also a dry spirit pill. A purple-colored medicinal pill could be seen in his hand. As soon as it appeared, a wonderful fragrance filled the square. Breathing it, Meng Hao felt his spiritual energy increase slightly. This was clearly no ordinary pill. That's a dry spirit pill. That's something incredibly precious to anyone under the 5th level of qi condensation. There can't be many within the sect, and yet there it is. When that pill is distributed, the fighting will be fierce. Who knows how many will die? The crowd buzzed as they stared up at the glowing pill, their faces filled with greed and desire. Disciples on the brink of breakthrough panted eagerly. The dry spirit pill was not meant for distribution today. However, a disciple was promoted to the outer sect this month, which pleases me greatly. If we can do this every month, great glory lies ahead for the Reliance sect. I bestow this pill upon that person as encouragement. Shangyuan Ziu smiled, his glittering eyes sweeping across the crowd to land upon Meng Hao. Meng Hao's heart raced. The first half of the speech left him unsettled, but he had no time to react. Shang Yuanziu's right hand flicked, and the purple pill appeared before him. Before he could protest, it lowered into his hand. Meng Hao's entrance into the Reliance sect was unprecedented. Every eye in the crowd fixed upon him. Greed and cruelty filled their expressions, as if they'd rip him to pieces. Even the man and woman next to Shang Yuanziu stared. The woman's shock-stricken face quickly hardened into an icy expression. Haha, a first-level chi condensation disciple receives the pill. There will be a lot of fighting. This guy is public enemy number 1. He's finished. Last time there was an individual pill day, the guy who received the pill was at the second level of chi condensation. He hesitated for just a moment too long, so elder brother Zhao Wugang dragged him in a fury to the public area and lopped off his head. The sound of discussion reverberated across the square, and many disciples of the second or third chi condensation level, despite knowing the danger, grew greedy. Because the cultivation base of the person who received the pill was so weak, they felt as if they were qualified to snatch it. Meng Hao broke out in a cold sweat. He wanted to throw the pill away, but it clung to his hand. Around him, covetous eyes glared menacingly, and he felt the shadow of death hanging over him. Some people began to walk toward him, murderous expressions on their faces. "Junior brother, why don't you toss that pill to me? If you don't, I'll give you a thrashing. If you don't give it to me, next year today will be the anniversary of your death." The murmurs blasted at him like a cold wind from all directions. At that moment, 2 old men sat cross-legged on one of the nearby mountain peaks, smiling as they discussed the scene unfolding in the outer sect square. Master Shangyuan lacks foresight. To give the medicinal pill to a pup who just entered the sect. It seems our Reliance sect will be short another disciple. The fighting this time won't be interesting. I wager as soon as the restrictive fog clears, the pup will toss the pill. As soon as the second old man finished speaking, the 9 colorful, dragon-carved statues surrounding the square began to fade. In about 10 breaths, they would be completely colorless, and the restrictive fog would disappear. Meng Hao's heart pounded. He understood what awaited when the glowing pillars turned dark. The square would erupt into madness. Even if he threw the pill away, they'd resent him. How could this be given to me? Meng Hao said, sweating. His mind reeled. If he didn't get rid of the pill, he'd die. If he did, he'd become an object of hatred. Drawing on his 3 years of cultivation, he looked at the fading, colorful glow, then at Shang Yuanziu preparing to leave on the platform. Then an inspiration struck him. He took a step forward and called out, "Disciple has something to say." Being able to come to the Reliance sect and experience the wonders of living amidst immortals has been a great fortune. Disciple wishes to thank the one person who made this possible. Disciple has been waiting day and night for another opportunity to lay eyes on her and offer thanks in person. Today, I finally have that chance. As he spoke faster, Shang Yuanziu stared in shock, halting his departure. That person is Elder Sister Su. Elder Sister Su, Junior brother is deeply grateful for what you have done and cannot repay such kindness. I offer this pill to you in gratitude for giving me a new lease on life. Meng Hao raised the medicinal pill high. Shang Yuanziu gaped in disbelief, clearly never imagining Meng Hao would say such a thing. His expression shifted and he slowly smiled. In her silver robe, Miss Su also stared in shock. Though she remained cold and detached, something in her expression had changed. Her cultivation base was the 7th level of chi condensation, so the dry spirit pills would not greatly aid her. Yet dry spirit pills were still rare and difficult to acquire, even for an inner sect disciple. If she combined this pill with a few others, she could create a new pill worth 5 normal pills. For a moment, her heart quickened with eagerness. Even the man in the silver robe, cool-eyed, looked down at Meng Hao. Everyone fell silent. The cultivators advancing on Meng Hao halted abruptly, bewildered expressions on their faces. After the brief silence, there was a sudden uproar. "You can do this." To give away a medicinal pill in front of all these people to an inner sect disciple. Who dares to fight for the pill now? That would basically be picking a fight with the inner sect. What a simple method. How come I never thought about that? Damn it, damn it. That freaking. I can't believe I didn't think of doing this that one time. I was injured so badly I was bedridden for 3 months. The people staring at Meng Hao had mixed feelings. No one recalled such a thing happening before, but these cultivators had certainly never seen anyone handle a medicinal pill this way. Meng Hao was now permanently etched into their memories. The dragon-carved pillars were now colorless. The pill still lay in Meng Hao's outstretched palm, and yet no one moved to take it. This was truly rare in the Reliance sect. Miss Sue's expression returned to normal. Without hesitation, her hand flashed down and the pill flew into hers. Seeing the pill taken away, Meng Hao sighed in relief. He knew it could only bring him calamity if he'd kept it. Around him, others sighed, angry at Meng Hao, but their anger faded at the thought of elder sister Sue. Miss Sue hesitated. As an inner sect disciple, it would be improper to take something so valuable from an outer sect disciple without offering something in return. She was silent a moment, then said, "Years ago, when I was an outer sect member, an immortal's cave was bestowed to me. I shall lend it to you." She reached into her bag of holding and pulled out a white jade slip, tossing it down. Meng Hao caught it from the air. Elder Sister Sue's immortal's cave. This fellow really got lucky. They say there's a lot of spiritual energy in there, more than anywhere else in the sect. Elder Sister Sue says she's lending it, but she's obviously just giving it to him. She used the word lend to spare the disciples any gossip. This kid really did the right thing. Damn it, I wish I had thought of this back then. Just then, the two tall, grand old men atop the mountain peaks laughed heartily, their eyes glittering with praise. This kid is interesting. He just entered but already knows to find someone to rely on. Does he have innate instincts? Very good, splendid. He comprehends the true meaning of the Reliance sect. This kid isn't bad. He really isn't bad. Chapter 6. The Delights of the Copper Mirror. Elder Sister Sue was well known in the Reliance sect. In fact, everyone knew her, because the Reliance inner sect had only 2 disciples. Other than Elder Sister Sue, the only other disciple was the man currently standing next to Xianxia Audiobook. After Elder Sister Sue lent him her immortal's cave, its fearsome effect on everyone allowed Meng Hao to leave the square with his spirit stone and spirit condensation pills. Everyone watched him depart. As he walked away, his back soaked with sweat, he felt the glares behind him like invisible blades. They dissipated as he walked quickly. For the time it takes 3 incense sticks to burn, Meng Hao walked without stopping. He didn't return to his outer sect room but followed the white jade slip toward the southern mountain. At its foot, he located the Immortal's Cave. Outside the cave, 2 large stone slabs towered next to the mountain face. Everything was covered with green branches and vines, an unordinary place, very different from his previous dwellings. The surroundings here were peaceful and lush. Not far away, a mountain spring flowed down, and the wind carried away the heat, replacing it with cool, fresh air. Meng Hao stood before the Immortal's Cave, looking content. Now he truly understood how precious it was, far more than any other dwelling. No wonder the outer sect disciples had looked so jealous when Elder Sister Sue lent it to him. "This is a place for immortals," Meng Hao said. He waved his right hand and the white jade slip flew forward to the cave's green stone door. It slapped onto the surface, and a buzzing sound filled the air as the door opened. The Immortal's Cave was small, with only 2 rooms. One was for cultivation practice, the other sealed with a stone door. Meng Hao entered and the green door closed behind him. When sealed, the white jade slip flew into his hand. Then a soft glow emanated from the craggy ceiling. The more he looked, the more satisfied he felt. Finally, his gaze fell on the sealed stone door. Muttering to himself, he placed the jade slip onto it and the door opened. At that moment, thick spiritual energy wafted out. Meng Hao looked into the stone room, his eyes wide with shock. Sister Sue's Immortal's Cave. This gift is too valuable. It took a while to recover his composure. He stared into the stone room at something that appeared to be a spring's mouth. From it gurgled pure spiritual energy, multicolored and glowing as it curled into the air. It had accumulated for who knows how long. As soon as the door opened, it began to pour out, its aroma sweet. Even a whiff would fill you with energy. "So it's a spirit spring," Meng Hao murmured. He'd never seen one but had read about them in the Qi condensation manual. Spirit springs had no water, they flowed with spiritual energy instead. Few existed, and most were occupied by cultivators, given how treasured their spiritual energy was. The spirit spring was relatively small. When all its spiritual energy came out, it was only slightly thicker than outside. To anyone above the 3rd level of Qi condensation, it would not be very helpful. After the 3rd level, the required spiritual energy became too great. Thus, it was only moderately useful. Despite that, Meng Hao found this gift incomparably valuable, even more so than a dry spirit pill. With this discovery, he went nearly wild with joy. With no time to think, he sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and began breathing exercises. After a few hours, most of the accumulated spiritual energy was gone. Meng Hao opened his eyes, and they flashed brilliantly. These few hours of meditation here were worth about a month of cultivation outside. The accumulation took time to build and won't be like this again. Still, practicing here, I'll achieve speeds impossible outside. He sighed. Looking around, he noticed the walls were covered with strange markings he didn't understand. The spirit spring accumulates so much spiritual energy because of these markings. Elder Sister Su must have built it up then disposed of it all at once. Meng Hao thought for a moment, then had an inspiration. He sat down and began breathing exercises again. The night passed quickly. As the sun rose the next morning, Meng Hao opened his eyes. The spiritual energy in the stone room was very thin, but the spirit spring remained. After some time, the spiritual energy would build up again. Meng Hao took a moment to sense his cultivation level. It seemed that he had made an advancement worth nearly 2 months. If I can practice cultivation this way a few more times, I should reach the second level of qi condensation. He sucked in a breath, excited. He was eager to reach the second level, because only then could one unlock the first immortal skill in the qi condensation manual. Thinking of immortal skills, Meng Hao left the stone room, closing the door as if it were precious. He decided to use Elder Sister Su's method. He wouldn't stand guard but would wait for time to pass, then return to collect the spiritual energy. Sitting there in the immortal's cave, Meng Hao rubbed his stomach. Reflecting on recent days and looking at his skinny belly, he realized he hadn't eaten any wild animals or fruits recently. After becoming an outer sect disciple, he'd eaten less than when he was a servant. As long as you had enough spirit stones, you could take them to the sect's pill cultivation workshop to exchange for fasting pills or appetite control pills. 1 drop would prevent hunger for days. Without them, people had to worry about finding food. After thinking about it, Meng Hao decided to go out. The fresh wind blew past him into the surrounding jungle. As he walked, he pulled the copper mirror from his bag of holding, his custom now. By now, he was convinced that the treasure pavilion brother had tricked him. There was nothing unusual about this mirror. In over half a month of study, he'd found nothing even slightly peculiar. Sadly, I only have half a spirit stone in my bag. I'll probably need to use it to bribe him into an exchange. He stretched his hand into the bag to pull out the spirit stone, feeling dejected. He suddenly froze, lifting his head when he noticed a flash of color in the distance. It wasn't moving fast. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. Based on his months of catching wild chickens, he knew exactly what it was. Wild chicken. Without time to shove the copper mirror and spirit stone back, he shoved them into a pocket and leaped forward. Ever since spiritual energy appeared in his body, Meng Hao realized he was much nimbler. Despite still being somewhat frail, he could now burst forth with explosive force. Especially now, at the first level of qi condensation, such a leap propelled him forward quickly. In about 10 breaths, he snatched the alarmed wild chicken, clasping it by both wings so it couldn't move. I wonder how good old Fatty is doing, he said, thinking about the fat teenager as he lifted the chicken. Maybe he'd find him and share a meal of wild game. Just as he turned, he felt something inside his robe growing hot. Moments later, the quiet chicken in his hand started struggling wildly and emitting miserable squawks. It moved with such energy that Meng Hao almost lost his grip. The chicken struggled more fiercely, squawking shrilly. Then a popping sound came from its rear, which suddenly exploded, sending blood and gore flying everywhere. Everything happened so suddenly. Meng Hao stood gaping. Since arriving on the mountain, he'd caught many wild chickens but never seen anything like this. He looked down with shock at the dead chicken and its exploded rear. Then he looked around. Everything was still and quiet. What just happened? Meng Hao shivered. The chicken's death was miserable. It must have experienced incredible pain for its rear to explode like that. Meng Hao took a deep breath, suppressing his anxiety. The chicken's death was too odd and horrific. He felt as if a cold wind blew down his back. Something's not right, Meng Hao said. He tossed away the dead chicken, then pulled out the mirror and spirit stone. He remembered that just before the strangeness with the chicken, something in his robe had started to grow hot. Could it be the spirit stone? Then his eyes fell on the copper mirror. His heart began to beat faster and a powerful radiance shone in his eyes. Don't tell me, the hand holding the mirror trembled. He had no time to eat with the fat teenager. Gripping the mirror, he ran into the jungle as fast as he could, trying to find another wild animal. He needed to know if the mirror really killed the chicken. He didn't have to run long before a wild deer appeared in front of him. It stood looking at him stupidly, then angrily. Meng Hao immediately shined the mirror at it. The deer's expression changed immediately. It leaped to flee, calling out miserably in a heartrending way. Anyone hearing it could only imagine its misery. Meng Hao could clearly see its flank as it leaped. Before it could land, its rear exploded with a bang, its body twitching as it fell. Looking at the dead deer, then at the mirror, unprecedented excitement appeared on Meng Hao's face. What a treasure, a real treasure. How strange, a treasure that explodes the rear ends of wild animals. Though he didn't understand it completely, he was very excited. Regardless of why it did this, he had a burning desire to test it on more animals. Chapter 7. I Need Spirit Stones. As he walked, he grew more excited. The road was filled with blood and gore. The blood and gore of scores of wild animals, whose rear ends had exploded. Bang! Another furry animal screamed as an invisible attack struck its rear 3 times until it exploded, sending a mist of blood into the air. Boom! A foraging giant condor still in the air shrieked miserably as if experiencing a nightmare. Then its rear exploded. Bang boom! That was a fierce human-sized tiger about to pounce. In midair, its terrifying roar changed into a horrific squeal, and its rear blew open, showering gore everywhere. With so much fur, it actually exploded 5 times in succession. What a treasure! What a mighty treasure! Before he knew it, dusk had fallen, and Meng Hao's expression was extremely excited. He looked down at the copper mirror. Throughout the day, he'd exploded the rear ends of over 100 animals. Fortunately, he was out in the wild mountains. Otherwise, the stench would be overwhelming. The mirror isn't completely effective. When I tried it on that python and the fish, it didn't work. It seems it doesn't work on animals with scales, but it's still awesome. He tested it many ways and discovered it didn't work inside the bag of holding, only when held. He got a strange, excited feeling when it worked exploding animal rear ends. The corrosion was beginning to fade, as if it had been hidden for years and finally could stretch its legs. As dusk fell, Meng Hao found himself far out in the wild mountains. The night wind blew, and he took a deep, excited breath. He was getting ready to head back to the Immortal's cave. After all, these mountains were filled with wild animals. Meng Hao had even heard demonic beasts that practiced cultivation lived here. Despite his excitement, he knew it could be dangerous. Coming here while searching for wild animals, his pace had been slow. On the return, he could move much faster. Meng Hao sped through the wooded mountains, and before long, a bright moon hung high. He could see only 3 mountains lay between him and the Immortal's cave. Suddenly, he felt a hot wind on his face, accompanied by an acrid odor. He stopped, his heart thumping, then retreated a few steps. Roar! As soon as he stepped back, the air shook with a mighty roar, and the hot wind and acrid odor swept over him again. In front of him was a monkey-like creature about human-sized. Its red eyes radiated cruelty, and its entire body was covered with thick, luxuriant fur. The fierce beast stared bloodthirsty at Meng Hao. His expression changed. His mind reeled as if the creature's gaze would blow him away. He could sense the creature's cultivation base fluctuating. Second level of qi condensation. Meng Hao stepped back, horrified. This was no wild beast, it was a demonic beast. It must have been attracted by the blood from all the slain animals. There was no time to think. The long-furred, monkey-like demonic beast leaped into the air, suddenly covered in fire that didn't singe its fur. It shot toward Meng Hao. At this critical moment, Meng Hao's expression changed. He wasn't sure the copper mirror would work, but there was no time to consider. As it leaped, he ducked to the side, pulled out the mirror, and shined it at the demonic beast. Then a miserable scream filled the air. In midair, blood shot from the demonic beast's rear. Its face twisted in horror, its eyes shifting from cruelty to confusion, as if it had never experienced such pain in its entire life. But it didn't retreat. Moments later, more blood exploded out. Now confusion turned to complete astonishment. It stared in horror at the mirror in the young man's hands. It turned, covering its rear with its claws. The fire went out and it tried to flee, but before going more than a handful of meters, its rear exploded again, 5 times in succession. Its screams rang out as it ran about 30 more meters. Meng Hao felt the copper mirror trembling with excitement. A powerful boom rang out, shooting straight at the demonic beast's rear. An incomprehensible scream rang out over the wild mountains as half the demonic beast's body exploded. A cloud of blood and gore shot up, then descended. Confusion filled its face as it gasped a few last breaths, then died. Everything happened so fast. The entire time, Meng Hao stood gaping. Finally, he took a breath and looked down at the mirror, panting. Even demonic beasts can't avoid having their rear ends exploded. This mirror. In his excitement, Meng Hao felt deep awe. He put it away, then looked at the demonic beast's corpse, his heart thumping. The qi condensation manual mentions demonic beasts. It says they have a demonic core inside containing spiritual energy. I should be able to eat it. He walked over to the corpse. Sure enough, in its abdomen he found a pristine demonic core about the size of a fingernail. It emitted a delicate, fragrant aroma that left him feeling extremely comfortable. Having retrieved the demonic core, Meng Hao hurried on. Unfortunately, demonic creatures weren't common here. He saw no more on his way back to the immortal's cave. He felt a little disappointed. By the time he returned, it was deep into the night. He sat cross-legged and looked at the demonic core in copper mirror, his eyes shining. I can eat the demonic core, but I still have the spirit condensation pill the sect distributed. I'll take that first, then the demonic core. Mind made up, Meng Hao put the demonic core and copper mirror next to him, as well as the spirit stone. With it at his side, he'd absorb more spiritual energy. Next, he took out the spirit condensation pill and swallowed it. As soon as it entered his body, strands of spiritual energy spread slowly. Meng Hao rotated his cultivation base, quickly absorbing the pill's power. When he opened his eyes an hour later, they glittered brightly. Taking this pill was definitely faster than practicing, he thought. Unfortunately, the spirit condensation pill didn't have enough energy. There was nothing he could do about that. His gaze shifted and he picked up the demonic core and popped it into his mouth. As soon as it entered, spiritual energy far exceeding the spirit condensation pill poured into him. It was almost too much. He quickly rotated his cultivation base, pouring the energy into it. His body trembled and strands of filth were pushed from his pores. 8 or 10 hours later, his head buzzed and he felt his body would float. Now, there was not a strand of spiritual energy inside him. The strands had fused to form a stream. Spiritual energy like a stream, the body excretes mortal filth. Don't tell me this is the second level of qi condensation. Meng Hao opened his eyes. They shined with indescribable expression. He looked down at his body, cast his senses inside, and examined himself carefully. Sure enough, he'd broken through to the second level of qi condensation. Demonic cores really are incredibly effective. Meng Hao's eyes sparkled. He stood and strolled around the immortal's cave, enjoying the stream-like spiritual energy circulating through his body. He was incredibly happy. I am now a second-level qi condensation immortal. Too bad demonic cores are so rare, otherwise I could practice much faster, and it's all thanks to my treasured mirror. Meng Hao looked at the mirror. His body suddenly trembled and he unconsciously rubbed his eyes. He looked more closely, an incredulous expression filling his face. The copper mirror lay there as before, but instead of the spirit stone on top, there was a demonic core. This, Meng Hao's brain spun with confusion. He felt as if he'd lost his mind. He stared at the demonic core on the mirror and began to hesitate. He'd placed a demonic core and spirit stone on it. He remembered clearly, but he'd eaten the demonic core already. Suddenly, he wasn't sure. Had he eaten the demonic core or the spirit stone? I couldn't have eaten the spirit stone. Meng Hao gaped, then slowly picked up the demonic core. He hesitated, then sniffed it. The smell made him certain. What he'd eaten was definitely a demonic core. What's happening? Another one. Don't tell me the demonic beast had 2 demonic cores. Meng Hao felt even more confused. He shook his head, forcing himself to think. He looked at the demonic core, then the copper mirror. His body trembled and his eyes shone with incredible brilliance, as if he'd glimpsed 10,000 pieces of gold. He seemed about to drop the core. Could it be? The mirror absorbed the spirit stone and produced a second demonic core. His voice quavered. He thought the mirror's ability to explode wild beasts was powerful enough. He never imagined it would have an even more profound ability. After a while he recovered somewhat, though his heart was still filled with thoughts. Right now, he didn't have a spirit stone to test, so his heart was filled with anxiety. He had an aching desire to get one to experiment with. Spirit stones. I need spirit stones. His eyes shone like a ferocious wild beast. At this moment, spirit stones were more valuable than gold. His desire for them was even stronger than his previous desire to become an official. Spirit stones are indispensable to cultivators, especially Meng Hao. When worried about gains and losses, one's heart fills with nervousness and anxiety. Now Meng Hao's desire for spirit stones was stronger than anything he'd ever experienced. Unfortunately, the Reliance sect was small. Other than the monthly pill distribution day, there were almost no chances to get them except by taking them from others. 1 month until the next pill distribution day. Meng Hao looked at the copper mirror, his expression growing ferocious. Moments later, the ferocity disappeared. His cultivation base was only at the second level. Even if he wanted to take something by force, he wouldn't be a match for anyone. Back in Yunji County I had no money, Meng Hao said helplessly. Now I'm an immortal and I still have no money. He pondered how to get his hands on more spirit stones. Chapter 8, Zhao Wugang. One more month and I must increase my cultivation base one step further. He carefully put the copper mirror back into his bag of holding. He knew he couldn't let anyone know its abilities. If he did, he'd lose it and surely his life. He looked down at himself, covered in filth. In his excitement, he'd almost forgotten, but now he'd calmed down. He walked out of the immortal's cave to the nearby stream and washed off the grime and impurities. By the time he returned, the sky was growing light. He took out the Qi condensation manual and began to study it. Upon reaching the second level of Qi condensation, one can use immortal skills. Upon reaching the fifth level, one can study wind walking technique, which resembles flying. Meng Hao closed his eyes, feeling thorough anticipation regarding wind walking at the fifth level. In that instant, the temperature increased rapidly within the immortal's cave. Then, tongues of fire appeared on his right hand. Thinking like a mortal, this caused great excitement, which extinguished the flames. Meng Hao calmed himself and rotated his cultivation base. Unfortunately, by afternoon, after dozens of attempts, he could only produce sparks before his spiritual energy dispersed. It's difficult to use this flame serpent art, said Meng Hao with a frown. But he had a persistent personality and would not be discouraged easily, so he practiced breathing exercises for a while before trying again. Night fell, then dawn came again. For 2 days Meng Hao tried, failing each time until exhausted. When energy dispersed, he'd do breathing exercises, and resolve in his eyes grew stronger. I can't believe I can't use the flame serpent art, Meng Hao said, grinding his teeth and slapping his bag of holding. Moments later, the demonic core appeared in his hand. He knew that if he consumed the core, and the mirror really had other fantastic properties, he'd lack an original to make copies from later. Oh well, no need to worry. Worst case, I go back into the mountains for demonic beasts. He hesitated a moment, then popped the demonic core into his mouth, closed his eyes and began breathing exercises. Spiritual energy exploded inside him, pouring into every corner. Time passed, and soon it was afternoon. Meng Hao opened his eyes and they flashed. His cultivation base was still at the second level but was definitely much stronger now. With 3 or 5 more I can reach the third level. He felt somewhat disappointed, realizing the higher his cultivation base, the more difficult progress would be. But anticipation filled his heart when he thought of the copper mirror. He raised his hand and made a fist. As he raised his fist, flames appeared, congealing on his arm and creating a small flaming serpent as long as a finger, radiating oppressive heat. Meng Hao felt his spiritual energy instantly reduced by 30%. His face grew pale, but understanding flashed in his eyes and he smiled. He leaped out of the immortal's cave and waved his hand. The flame serpent flew, slamming into a nearby tree. A banging sound rang out, and the entire tree was engulfed in flame, and within moments had collapsed into ashes. I have to do this in front of Fatty. He'll definitely praise me. He smiled broadly, feeling quite heroic. Half a month passed, during which Meng Hao searched the mountains for demonic beasts and trained his flame serpent art. He worked harder than in his secular studies, and soon was quite proficient, able to reduce the spiritual energy it used. But it still required considerable effort over about 10 breaths to form. He also went into the outer sect and secretly tried the mirror on some disciples. However, there was no reaction. After a few tries, Meng Hao concluded the mirror only worked on excessively furred creatures. A pity, but the mirror was still more powerful than he could ever wish for. Unfortunately, during the half-month he never came across demonic creatures, and his cultivation base became stagnant. Thankfully, after practicing the flame serpent art, his cultivation base grew a little during recovery. However, he didn't dare practice in the wild mountains, only in the immortal's cave. 10 more days until pill distribution day. I'm going further into the mountains. Decision made, Meng Hao departed early morning, heading quickly into the deep mountains. He didn't rest during the day, and by nightfall, he'd lost count of the mountain chains passed. Finally, at the foot of a black mountain, he ran into a bear-shaped demonic beast. During the battle, he used the flame serpent art and the powerful copper mirror. A series of 5 explosions followed a miserable, reverberating scream, and the creature died in a pool of blood. He took its core, about to head further when suddenly the hairs on his body stood on end. Some distance ahead appeared 5 demonic beasts with elephant heads and tiger bodies. They stared at him, eyes cold. With the mirror he could handle one easily, but 5 would be very difficult. He slowly retreated, his right hand clutching the mirror. Suddenly, a massive roar sounded from the trees covering the Black Mountain. It grew in intensity until it was like a huge explosion seething in the air. Meng Hao's expression changed, and he ran away as fast as possible, without the slightest hesitation. Fortunately, the 5 beasts didn't pursue him, and he soon disappeared into the mountains. That cry sounded like Uncle Shangyuan's. There must be many demonic beasts on that Black Mountain, even greater ones. As he sped along, he looked back, more convinced of its danger. 10 days passed quickly. With the Black Mountain as his boundary, Meng Hao ventured into the mountains but found no more demonic beasts. The bare demonic core in his bag seemed more precious, so he didn't eat it. Pill distribution day arrived and bells filled the air. Meng Hao left the Immortals' Cave and entered the outer sect. When he departed a month ago, his cultivation base was the first level. Now it was the second. Though far from the third level, he speculated that if the copper mirror was as effective as imagined, he'd progress by leaps and bounds. Cautious as ever, Meng Hao entered the pill distribution square. Many disciples looked at him, obviously recognizing him. His actions the previous month had shocked the outer sect. Though his cultivation level was low and a month had passed, the matter was still discussed. This time not Shangyuan Ziu presided, but another middle-aged man. Like last time, he distributed a spirit condensation pill and half a spirit stone, but there was no individual pill distribution. As soon as the pill and spirit stone were in his bag and the pillars grew dark, Meng Hao left as quickly as possible. As he left, his eyes swept across the square, and he saw several cultivators blocking disciples to take pills and spirit stones. Elder Sister Su's blessing still seemed to have an effect. Coupled with his quick departure, he only received a few cold stares. No one attempted to take anything. He breathed a sigh of relief. He knew Elder Sister Su's name could only protect him so long. This month was fine, but in a few more months, someone would surely move against him. As long as the copper mirror works in a few months, we'll see who snatches from whom. Eyes glittering, he lowered his head and walked faster. He left the outer sect, eager to try out the copper mirror, walking as fast as possible back to the Immortals' Cave. When the cave was not far off, he suddenly stopped, his pupils narrowing. A person had just walked out of the jungle. He wore a green robe and looked to be about 24 or 25. His fierce face held an arrogant look as he stared coldly at Meng Hao. His cultivation base was not ordinary, the third level of qi condensation. He stood blocking Meng Hao's way. "Greetings, Elder Brother Zhao," Meng Hao said, his expression changing as he stepped back. He moved his left hand behind his back, beginning to move it in the air. He'd seen this person before. Everyone in the outer sect knew Elder Brother Zhao Wugeng. He was cruel and ruthless, and many low-level disciples had died by his hand in the public zone. He ingratiates himself to disciples above the third level but lords it over the first and second levels. "So, you've heard of me," Zhao Wugeng said coldly. "I don't need introductions. Hand over your medicinal pill and spirit stone." Others didn't dare touch Meng Hao, but Zhao Wugeng had entered the sect years ago and knew how things worked. Elder Sister Su often secluded herself, ignoring those beneath her. "Elder Brother Zhao, can't you make an exception?" Meng Hao said, stepping back. I'm just a simple scholar, I just got these. Can't you give me some time?" This person's cultivation level was greater by more than an entire level. Furthermore, he'd never fought anyone. His face grew pale from fear. "You call yourself a scholar," he sneered, then laughed. "Don't tell me you were one before coming here. Come, recite some poetry for your elder brother. Maybe you'll lighten my mood and I won't beat you." "Elder Brother Zhao." Meng Hao was extremely nervous and quite angry, but he had to try talking sense into him. The sages said, "Shut up. I'll take not only your pill and spirit stone but the Immortals' Cave as well. From now on, we're fellow disciples outside, but in the cave, you'll be my servant. Say one more word and I'll teach you death is better than life." Glaring murderously, he began walking toward Meng Hao. His cultivation base had broken through to the third level and needed large amounts of spiritual energy. Of course, he'd taken a fancy to the Immortals' Cave. However, he still feared Elder Sister Su, so he decided to keep him as a servant. After time passed, she'd surely forget those beneath her, and he could kill Meng Hao, or cripple him and force him to recite poetry to show Zhao Wugeng's elegance. "The Immortals' Cave belongs to Elder Sister Su. How could I act as her agent? Please don't make things hard for me." Behind his back, strands of spiritual energy collected in his right hand. He knew he wasn't a match for Zhao Wugeng, but the Immortals' Cave was too important, as was the spirit stone. There was no way he'd hand them over. His heart filled with uncertainty and anger, he used elder sister Su's name. "I give you face and you ignore it," Zhao Wugang said with a snort. "You're looking for trouble. I'll teach you death is better than life." With an impatient expression, he raced toward Meng Hao, his outstretched hands twisting like claws. Meng Hao looked shocked and frightened, which Zhao Wugang liked. He enjoyed such looks on weaker people. He could just imagine Meng Hao dropping to the ground trembling. Just when he felt most proud, right before reaching him, Meng Hao's horror disappeared, replaced by sternness. He flung his right hand out from behind his back, and a burning, finger-long flame serpent shot toward Zhao Wugang. Meng Hao's heart thumped furiously. He knew the flame serpent art wasn't strong enough to kill him, but hoped it would slow him down. He couldn't bear capture, much less becoming a servant. He'd flee into the mountains if he could. Flame serpent art. Zhao Wugang's expression changed, and he retreated. His hand slapped his bag and produced a small white sword, which he threw at the flame serpent. There was a bang and the flame serpent disappeared. The white sword was twisted and bent, so he kicked it aside. Looking embarrassed, Zhao Wugang continued to move back, watching as Meng Hao fled. He was both furious and astonished. "He reached the second level so quickly," Zhao Wugang said furiously. "Elder Sister Su's Immortal's Cave really is effective. I must kill this guy." He raced off in pursuit. After pursuing him a bit, he found Meng Hao was much more familiar with these mountains. Furthermore, he ran very quickly. Zhao Wugang was having trouble catching him. "You little bastard," Zhao Wugang called sinisterly. "There's no one out here. Do you want to die? I'm gonna finish you." Seeing how quickly Meng Hao ran, he decided to use one of his more powerful techniques. He roared, his body expanded, the hair on his body growing thick and golden. Some hair stuck through his clothing. He looked like a demonic beast. This was a technique he'd learned before joining the sect, the Demon skill. It could be cultivated after reaching the second level, but the demonic transformation wasn't obvious. The body grew bigger, stronger, and more frightening. It let him rampage among lower-level disciples. He could only use it for limited time, but it was quite effective, his killing trump card. Now that his cultivation base had reached the third level, the skill was more fully developed. Growing such thick, golden fur was a pleasant surprise. Shape-shifting into this demonic form would easily shock opponents. He brimmed with confidence, his thick, golden fur shining brightly, mighty and domineering. Fur grew from his face. He looked exactly like a human-shaped demonic beast. "You will be the first person to die under my Demon skill. How just and fair." Chapter 9. Impatience and Frustration. Using this technique at the third level increased Zhao Wugang's strength and speed. Grinning hideously, face full of greed, he charged at Meng Hao, sharp claws glittering. He brimmed with confidence, certain that Meng Hao's fear would break him. Flee he might, but not escape. "Run," laughed Zhao Wugang with a ferocious smile, his powerful voice reverberating through the air. "You can't escape the skills of Zhao Wugang." When Zhao Wugang shapeshifted into demonic form, Meng Hao was fleeing ahead. He saw it from the corner of his eye, and surprise filled his face. But then, he seemed to think of something, and a stranger expression replaced it. This demonic form looked exactly like the beasts exploded by the copper mirror. In fact, he had more radiant fur than they did. Meng Hao looked carefully at Zhao Wugang, the strange expression still covering his face. The thick, golden fur made him look like some sort of king of beasts. When Zhao Wugang saw Meng Hao's look, he felt astonished. He tried the demon form but never revealed it before. Meng Hao's expression irritated him. He let out a cold, harumph, murderous intent in his eyes. "I think you'll probably like this copper mirror," Meng Hao said. Seeing Zhao Wugang's speed increase, he knew he'd close the distance rapidly. He stepped back and slapped his bag. Instantly, the mirror appeared. With the strange expression still on his face, he shined it at Zhao Wugang. As soon as the mirror shone, Meng Hao felt it emit burning heat he'd never felt before. This was a much stronger reaction than with other demonic beasts, as if a powerful thirst had been unleashed. At that moment, an invisible aura burst forth and shot forward. Zhao Wugang leaped toward Meng Hao, his aura radiating murder and ferocity. Suddenly, he felt strange, as if gas had entered his body. It roiled violently, as if trying to claw its way out. His expression changed. He felt severe pain in his organs, rising to critical level. Without thinking, he pushed the aura toward his dantian to force it out. The aura was powerful, seeking a weak spot to emerge. When he pushed it toward his dantian, it rushed to his rear and exploded with violent, gut-wrenching pain. Zhao Wugang let out an uncontrollable, blood-curdling scream. He'd never made such a sound, never experienced anything like it. His body trembled, and he glared wrathfully at Meng Hao, Murder in his bloodshot eyes grew fiercer. Elder brother Zhao, Meng Hao said, his heart thumping. This was his first fight. Why don't we end things here? If you don't harm me, I won't harm you. A happy ending. He clamped his hand over the mirror. His opponent's scream had unsettled him. After all, this was a person, not a beast. You little bastard, Zhao Wuging shouted. I'm going to kill you, find your family, and kill them too. I'll humiliate your entire clan. The pain had nearly driven him mad. His eyes burned, and with a roar he pounced, sharp claws ready to rip Meng Hao apart. Meng Hao was just a scholar, never in a fight, but he possessed courage, and Zhao Wuging's threats caused murderous intent to shine in his eyes. There was no point talking to someone set on provocation. He couldn't bear the screams, but such threats made anyone lose their temper. He stepped back and unflinchingly held up the mirror. As Zhao Wuging approached, something roared toward him. The terrifying aura entered again. Protecting himself, he sealed it off, but just when he felt confident, it shot through his body and exploded from his left ear. The pain was many times worse, and he let out a horrible, shrill shriek. Then his right ear exploded, showering blood. His head felt about to split, his face pale. Dumb with astonishment, he stared at Meng Hao, then his face filled with monstrous savagery. I will kill your entire family and eliminate your clan. I'll make them feel pain like this, then let them die screaming. Enduring the pain and death, he leaped toward Meng Hao with insane determination. I give you face and you ignore it, Meng Hao said, gaping. He'd never seen the mirror explode an ear before. Looking stern, he retreated, shining it again. Meng Hao, Zhao Wuging screamed, his right ear exploding. Both ears swelled. His expression shifted from rage to astonishment and dread. He turned, faster than ever, to flee, having lost desire to fight. But fear made him tremble, so he couldn't flee. Instead, he summoned his murderous intent again. He would inflict pain on Meng Hao's family and take the mirror. However, the mirror flew out of Meng Hao's hands for the first time. Its interest had been aroused. It flew after Zhao Wuging, attacking repeatedly. His eyes filled with desperation as incredible power entered his body. He screamed uncontrollably, unable to flee. Something tossed him into the air, and his ears, chest, and legs exploded. As the aura exploded, mists of blood shot into the air. In 10 breaths, Zhao Wuging's eyes grew dark and his body shifted from were-demon form to normal. The fur disappeared and the mirror lost interest, flying back to Meng Hao. Zhao Wuging's body dropped to the ground. Blood covered everything. Zhao Wuging's dead eyes shone with horror and despair. Anyone seeing him would tremble. Looking at the corpse, Meng Hao sucked in a breath. The mirror flew back into his hand and his body shook. Awe and veneration filled his eyes. Wild animals exploding was one thing, but a person was different. Seeing the blood and gore everywhere, he trembled. The stench of death caused him to want to rid himself of the mirror. He loosened his hand and tossed it down. He was just a scholar. The mirror had seemed interesting at first, but now it seemed gruesome, conflicting with Confucian ideals. He stood silent, feeling flustered. The frustration showed in his eyes. In his heart, he was still a scholar from Yunji County. He spoke truth to people and had never fought or killed. Such behavior was deeply rooted in his heart and couldn't easily change. As he contemplated, his heart struggled. Confucianism teaches etiquette, kindness, and justice, demanding restraint from killing, but the sect says the strong prey on the weak. I understand this truth, but practicing it is different. Trembling, Meng Hao felt frightened thinking about what happened. After a long time, he sighed and started to leave. But after a few steps, he ground his teeth, turned, and walked back. He picked up Zhao Wuging's bag, then summoned a flame serpent and placed it on the body. The fire didn't completely consume it, so Meng Hao consumed a spirit condensation pill, then shot 3 more flame serpents. Soon the corpse had withered to unrecognizable. He did breathing exercises, gritted his teeth, then shot 2 more. Now the corpse was completely ash. Glancing at the mirror on the ground, he clenched his jaw, walked over and picked it up, gripping it firmly. Still conflicted and afraid, Meng Hao left, walking back to the immortal's cave as quickly as possible. He sat in a daze. For a long time he just sat before finally opening Zhao Wuging's bag. When he saw inside, his eyes glittered. His dark mood suddenly changed. This guy was so rich, he exclaimed. The bag contained 8 spirit stones, 7 spirit condensation pills, and a bone fragment covered with strange symbols. He looked at it, then immediately tossed it aside. It described the were-demon technique. He didn't want to turn into one and be destroyed by his own mirror. As he tossed it, he remembered the flying sword. He walked out and tracked it in the jungle, lifted it, and returned to examine it, eyes glittering. Meng Hao couldn't reconcile immortal ways and Confucian philosophy. He decided to stop thinking about it. Maybe one day, but for now, staying alive in the sect mattered most. Eyes filled with resolve, he took the spirit stones out and felt them. Then he pulled out the mirror and set it next to him, looking at it. Elder brother Zhao provoked me, he murmured. I had to strike back. I tried to smooth things, but he refused. I killed someone, but I tried to be reasonable. I tried to be kind, but he rushed into death. The mirror reeks of blood. In an evildoer's hands it's evil, but in mine it's different. I have Confucian kindness and own this treasure. It will be different. He looked at the mirror and took a breath. It doesn't just explode things and seek blood. In the future I'll use it carefully. He muttered like this for some time, then lifted his head, thinking of the mirror's other mystery and his hope. He ground his teeth. Success or failure, now we'll see. If it succeeds, Meng Hao's cultivation will be anything but ordinary. With no hesitation, Meng Hao pulled out the demonic core and a half-spirit stone, then placed them on the mirror. He waited with nervous anticipation. After half an incense stick burned, nothing happened. The core didn't change, the stone didn't disappear. There was still only one core. Meng Hao frowned. He paced around before looking back. It can't be. Last month it made two. He stared at the stone, lost in thought. After a while, he slapped his bag and pulled out another half-stone, which he carefully placed on the mirror. Almost immediately, a black aura flashed across the mirror's surface, and it seemed to become a lake. The two stones sank down and the blackness rippled, condensing onto the core. Then, next to the first appeared a second. Meng Hao was stupefied. Though prepared, he was still shocked. After time passed, he picked up the two cores and examined them excitedly. So it's true, how profound. He breathed hard, taking time to compose himself. Suddenly everything seemed possible. He took deep breaths, then tried the process again. 1 stone, 2 stones. 9 stones, 1 left over. In front of him were 4 full cores. With the original, that was 5. The stones emitted a sweet aroma, filling the air, leaving him intoxicated. A silly grin on his face, he realized this was the most wealth he'd ever possessed. It was a sight no outer sect disciple had seen. His excitement lasted deep into the night. Clutching the cores, he placed one on his tongue and swallowed. 2 hours later, he opened his eyes and took another. He'd never been so extravagant. By the time the core's energy dispersed in his body, dawn had arrived. His body thrummed, and filth was excreted through his pores. When he opened his eyes, they shone brilliantly. The third level of qi condensation. Meng Hao was still not content. He looked at the remaining 3 pills and took another. By dawn the next day, he'd consumed all the cores. His cultivation base was a hair's breadth from the third level's peak. As for the 8 spirit condensation pills, they weren't much use considering his cultivation base. Even taking them all wouldn't help. He suspected the demonic cores made the difference. The sex pills should be more effective. A small amount won't do. Dozens wouldn't help much. Meng Hao closed his eyes, concentrating on the spiritual energy in his body. It was no longer a stream, it had become a river, not massive but definitely larger. As it circulated, it gave him power. He could sense astonishing energy filling him. Considering the shocking power, Meng Hao knew he'd undergone a thorough rebirth since yesterday. Before, anyone could push him around. Now, among third-level disciples in the public zone, his cultivation base was one of the most powerful. He waved his hand excitedly, and a flame serpent as long as his arm roared to life. Its heat filled the immortal's cave. The fierce flame serpent spit out fire. If he'd encountered Zhao Wugeng with this power, his flame serpent would have seriously injured or killed him. Chapter 10. Wang Tengfei. Toward the end of September, heat grew intense. In the lands of South Heaven, things usually cooled by the 11th month. By the first month of the following year, winter's freezing grip came. One morning at dawn, Meng Hao left the immortal's cave, eyes shining with hope. My cultivation base is a hair's breadth from the third level's peak, he said, taking a breath. Perhaps not powerful in the outer sect, but at least no one will pick on me. He looked off. The mountain breeze lifted his hair, and he appeared quite elegant. Originally a down-and-out scholar, he'd entered the world of immortals. When he thought back on recent events, they seemed almost unreal. Too bad I don't have enough spirit stones, and the spirit condensation pills aren't strong enough. His excitement faded into disappointment. Fatty, Wang Yaokai, and that headstrong young man, Meng Hao muttered. The 4 of us came here together. I wonder how they are now. His body moved forward in a flash. Circulating his spiritual energy, he headed toward the North Mountain. The east, south, west, and north mountains of the Reliance sect towered mightily into the sky, covered with pavilions carved from jade. If you looked at the mountains closely, you could see rays of dawn light seeping over their peaks, just beginning to illuminate the surroundings. White clouds wound around the peaks, concealing parts of the mountains. It really did seem like a place of immortals. If you wanted to go from the South Mountain to the North Mountain, but wanted to circumvent the outer sect, then you would have to pass along the East or West Mountain. Meng Hao walked along the path passing the East Mountain, 2 wild chickens in hand. I haven't seen Fatty in about 2 months. I wonder if he's lost any weight. Thinking about Fatty, Meng Hao smiled. Then his eyes flickered and he stopped walking. He felt a gentle breeze from up ahead, which carried along with it a thin fog. Amidst the fog walked a young man wearing a luxurious white robe. He was clearly different from other outer sect disciples. His white robe was as snow, and his long hair flowed over his shoulders. Incredibly handsome, almost pretty, he seemed perfect in every way, physical and temperament, as if blessed by heaven, chosen by nature. His expression was cool and indifferent, as if nothing were worthy to cause him to change it. Even if the mountains crumbled in front of him, he would remain calm. The fog beneath him roiled and churned. Behind him walked 2 youths, who were also handsome, but when compared to the white-robed young man seemed like trash. Elder Brother Wang, we've heard that in a few years, the sect will have special training to promote disciples to the inner sect. We junior brothers would like to take this opportunity to congratulate you in advance. Yes, when Elder Brother Wang entered the sect, he was already famous. He even aroused the interest of the other 3 great sects. But in the end, you decided to stick with the Reliance sect. What extraordinary magnanimity, refusal to violate the etiquette of the sect, ignoring the invitations of the outsiders, reaching the 6th level of chi condensation in these 2 years. I even heard one of the patriarchs say that the promotion training was being held just for Elder Brother Wang. That's right. Once Elder Brother Wang enters the inner sect, it won't be long before he surpasses Elder Sister Su and Elder Brother Chen. He'll be the famous #1 disciple of the Reliance sect. Don't speak foolishly, the man in white said gently. Elder Sister Su is a chosen and Elder Brother Chen is devoted to the Tao. They are both disciples I admire. His voice was light and warm, manly and pleasant. This was the outer sect's #1 disciple, Wang Tengfei. Elder Brother has achieved outstanding mastery of cultivation. With such latent talent and good nature, we junior brothers are happy to receive your instruction. Yes, Elder Brother Wang treats everyone kindly, even disciples of the 1st level of chi condensation. Everyone in the sect knows this. I truly admire you. The 3 talked, walking slowly. Wang in white caught sight of Meng Hao and nodded, passing without the other 2 giving a look. As they walked off, Meng Hao glanced back. Then he noticed the white-robed man's feet weren't on the ground. Instead, he floated about 7 inches up. Meng Hao gaped in shock. He realized he couldn't compare. He was frail and swarthy, unattractive. Furthermore, he carried 2 squirming chickens. So that's Elder Brother Wang Tengfei. He floats, a skill of the 5th level of chi condensation. He'd heard rumors and knew much about him. When Wang Tengfei joined, it caused commotion in the cultivation world. No one knew what the sect paid to comment or why he stayed. If I looked like him, I could have placed first in the exams. I could have married the emperor's daughter. Filled with admiration, Meng Hao turned and continued toward the North Mountain. He didn't stop and by midday had arrived in the wild mountains bordering it. This was where he and Fatty usually came to chop wood. As soon as he arrived, he heard chopping. With a smile, he walked forward and soon caught sight of Fatty, chopping at a tree. He was about to call out, then stopped. You stole my wife and Mantu. I'm gonna chop you to death. I'm gonna bite you. Fatty hadn't lost weight. In fact, he was fatter. He looked like a round ball. His eyes closed, he howled, surrounded by chopped wood. He hacked at trees, his body twisting. Then he dropped the axe and fell to sleep. Deep bite marks showed on the handle. Meng Hao was shocked. He'd never imagined Fatty's sleepwalking would become more severe in 2 months. Now it happened during the day too. He was hesitating whether to awaken him when Fatty's nose twitched and he rubbed his eyes. He gazed about, eyes shining, as if to drool. I smell wild chicken. Yeah, too. He jumped up and looked around, though he didn't see Meng Hao in the jungle. Then he saw the felled trees, a look of gratitude filling his eyes. Ah, Meng Hao, you're so kind, he said emotionally. You've been gone long but keep coming back to help me chop wood. Almost 2 months like this. Meng Hao and Li Fugui have never had a better friend. Meng Hao, still standing off in the distance, heard all of this and was amazed. He looked strangely at Fatty, then coughed lightly and stepped forward. When he appeared, it seemed Fatty could sense him. He turned his head and caught sight of him. his face full of excitement. "Meng Hao, you finally show your face," he said eagerly. "Every time I wake up I call out for you, but you never appear." Ah! His gaze fell onto the two wild chickens, and his eyes grew wide. A bit later, fire surrounded the chickens, and a fragrant aroma filled the air. Meng Hao and Fatty sat together, just the same as when they had both been servants. They gobbled down the chicken. "I haven't had wild chicken for 2 months," said Fatty, his mouth full of chicken. "How come you haven't shown your face all this time? Since you always come to help me chop wood, why don't you bring chickens too?" The joy on his face was clearly apparent as he looked at Meng Hao. It seemed that in his time in the Reliance sect, he had come to view Meng Hao as a relative. Meng Hao gave an enigmatic laugh and offered no explanation. Taking a bite of chicken, he looked at Fatty. It was then he noticed that Fatty's teeth seemed to be longer than before. "How has your cultivation training been going?" he asked. "Have you been able to sense spiritual energy?" "Don't bring it up," he said with a deep sigh. "I train every night, but the strange thing is, I haven't been able to sense even a tiny bit of spiritual energy. The only thing that happens is that my teeth grow. I'm worried I might bite my tongue off." He looked quite depressed. "Open your mouth," Meng Hao said suddenly. "Let me see your teeth." What Meng Hao saw shocked him. After swallowing a mouthful of chicken, Fatty opened his mouth to reveal a set of long teeth that glittered in the sunlight. As he examined them, Meng Hao's expression grew even stranger. He almost couldn't believe it. He could clearly sense spiritual energy fluctuating within Fatty's teeth. How is Fatty doing his training? Meng Hao thought. How could the spiritual energy be moving into his teeth? They've become spirit teeth. If he keeps training this way, they'll transform into true treasures. He shook his head in amazement. Time passed, and soon the sun was about to set. Meng Hao and Fatty chatted just as they used to in the old days. He told Fatty all about the things that had happened in the outer sect, with the exception of the copper mirror, of course. Fatty listened raptly, filled with the desire to reach the first level of chi condensation and get promoted. When it came time to leave, Meng Hao gave a spirit condensation pill to Fatty. He swallowed it, and then they parted. Fatty watched Meng Hao disappear into the jungle, looking a bit melancholy, assuring himself that he would apply himself diligently to cultivation training. He had come by route of the East Mountain, so Meng Hao decided to return by the West Mountain. This was his first time traversing the entirety of the Reliance sect. By the time dusk fell, he was walking next to a plateau which jutted out from the West Mountain. On the plateau was a massive stone tablet. The stone tablet was the color of blood, as if it had been painted with gore. Several characters were carved onto the cold stone. Low-level public zone. There were more characters off to the side, smaller. It explained that the chi condensation 4th-level disciples were prohibited from entering. Only 1st through 3rd levels could enter the public zone. Looking up, Meng Hao could see the multiple figures interlocked in combat. Many techniques were being used as they fought desperately. Blood sprayed in all directions and miserable cries rang out. An arm was lopped off, a bag of holding snatched. As he watched, someone rushed down the mountain, screaming, followed by a huge man with a hideous grin. "Help me! Who can save you from cow?" Chapter 11, Pill Cultivation Workshop Outlet. Not far ahead, Meng Hao saw someone screaming for help. Before the person could leave, the huge man's flying sword hit his neck. He fell twitching in a shower of blood, rattled his last breath, then died. The huge man grabbed his bag, then headed back. Meng Hao watched the grisly scene, then observed the plateau. The sounds of slaughter drifted on the wind, carrying blood and gore into his nostrils. You can get rich fast, but it's extremely dangerous. For cultivation and spirit stones, people risk their lives. It's not worth it. Meng Hao frowned. Almost at the 3rd level's peak, but it was too chaotic, too easy to be injured or robbed. Meng Hao thought about his lacking spirit stones. If dependent on sect distribution, who knew how long to wait? Muttering, he looked at the cultivators. They fought fiercely, all injured. Suddenly, an idea struck him. His idea grew more and more clear, and his eyes began to shine. He turned and hurried off, not to the Immortals' cave in the southern mountain, but rather down to the outer sect. He skirted the main square and eventually arrived at a building. The building appeared to be ancient and was surrounded by the fragrant aroma of medicine. Inscribed above the doorway were characters which read, "Pill Cultivation Workshop." It wasn't his first time coming here. Actually, in his first month after being promoted to the outer sect, he had come here once to check out the various medicinal pills which were for sale. That was when he had learned about the fasting pills you could buy which would prevent hunger for several days. The only currency used here was spirit stones and spirit condensation pills. Unfortunately, the exchange rate was very unfair. For example, one spirit condensation pill could be traded for 10 fasting pills. Because of this, few people came here, and it tended to be cold and deserted. When he arrived, Meng Hao didn't hesitate. It wasn't large inside, and sitting cross-legged right in the middle of the room was a sickly-looking middle-aged man. Surrounding him on the interlocking wooden shelves were an assortment of gourd bottles, inscribed upon which were the names of various medicines. There were blood coagulation pills which could treat external injuries, skeletal relaxation pills to relieve fatigue, spirit refreshment pills to temporarily increase energy, and of course fasting pills and appetite control pills. There were even marrow growth pills which could treat broken and crushed bones. There were many types of medicines, but all of them were considerably costly. For most, the cost of 3 to 10 pills was one spirit condensation pill. To most disciples of the inner sect, a spirit condensation pill was worth fighting over, so few were willing to come here and trade them away. Meng Hao strolled around the pill cultivation workshop muttering to himself, his eyes glittering. Then, he pulled out 5 spirit condensation pills and exchanged them for a handful of different types of medicines. It seemed the sickly man didn't see customers like Meng Hao very often. He brightened up immediately, handing over the bottle gourds of medicine. Placing all the bottles' gourds into his bag of holding, Meng Hao left, carefully taking a circuitous route through the mountainous forest back to the immortal's cave. By the time he arrived, night had fallen. He sat down cross-legged, looking at the 4 bottle gourds. The sages said, "If you do not expend, you will not profit. I've paid a lot this time, and I'm going to get a lot in return." Quietly comforting himself in this way, he stood and left the cave, returning shortly with a long tree branch about the thickness of his arm, along with a large pile of leaves. He pulled a green robe out from Zhao Wuging's bag of holding and tore the seams apart, then laid it out in front of him. It seemed the right size, so he pulled another robe out, tore the seams, and placed it with the first. He looked down, contented. Next, he crushed up the leaves to produce a thick sap. Then, he dipped his fingers into the makeshift ink and wrote several large characters onto the cloth in sweeping calligraphy. He looked at it, feeling quite satisfied, then closed his eyes and began doing breathing exercises. The night passed, and early the next morning he picked up the tree branch and left the cave hurriedly. It didn't take long to reach the plateau, and despite the early hour, there were already a few disciples there locked in battle. The fierceness of the fighting was readily apparent. Ignoring the other cultivators, Meng Hao passed the large stone tablets and walked onto the plateau. His eyes scanned the surroundings, until falling to rest on a boulder which stuck up out of the ground along the border. He walked over and sat down cross-legged on the boulder, looking every bit the peaceful and harmless scholar. Occasionally some of the others would look at him darkly, whereupon he would reveal some of his cultivation level. Frightened, they left him alone. He decided to wait until more people arrived. Time passed, and gradually more and more fellow disciples arrived in the public zone. Soon, there were about 20 people. Some of them looked at the kind, scholarly Meng Hao and started to walk toward him. All he had to do was reveal a bit of his cultivation level, and they would retreat in shock. After a while, he figured there were enough people. He slapped his bag of holding, retrieving the cloth strip. He attached it to the tree branch, which he then stabbed into the clay soil next to the boulder. The mountain breeze lifted the cloth up, turning it into a streaming banner. It caught the attention of quite a few of the people nearby, particularly the characters written on it. Pill Cultivation Workshop Outlet. The dark green characters seemed to flash, causing the facial expressions of the nearby Reliant sect disciples to change. Some seemed astonished, others confused. Some sneered and others frowned. Pill Cultivation Workshop Outlet, what does that mean? Don't tell me that guy is an apprentice alchemist sent by the sect's Pill Cultivation Workshop. He looks familiar. Discussions broke out on the plateau after Meng Hao revealed the flag, but after a bit of time passed, the fighting and robbing resumed. Blood showered and screams rang out. Meng Hao's eyes shone as he looked about at the people in the public zone. Not far off from him were 2 cultivators of the 2nd level of qi condensation, locked in combat, their eyes red. One of them had a shoulder sliced open by his opponent's flying sword. Blood showered out, and he seemed to be in quite a difficult position. "Brother, come here," called out Meng Hao. "Brother," the sages said, "it is unwise to risk one's life when injured. You seem to be bleeding quite profusely from your shoulder. It won't benefit you to let yourself be killed. I happen to have a blood coagulation pill here from the Pill Cultivation Workshop. It can heal all of the sword wounds on your body in less time than it takes to take 3 breaths. As Meng Hao made his sales pitch, the two fighting men ignored him and continued to fight. The injured cultivator's eyes grew redder, and the wound on his shoulder grew worse. Then, blood poured from his chest as his opponent's flying sword hit him again. "Look, you got wounded again," admonished Meng Hao of his first potential customer. "Quick, come buy a blood coagulation pill, otherwise you might be defeated. All you have to do is give me 1 spirit stone and I'll give you the blood coagulation pill. It's definitely worth it." "Shut up," roared the injured cultivator, retreating a pace. "The pill cultivation workshop is a ripoff, but they charge 1 spirit stone for 5 blood coagulation pills. You're even worse." "AI, it's not expensive. Your life is much more precious than a spirit stone. If you die, then all your spirit stones will belong to someone else. All you have to do is buy some of my medicine and then you'll have the chance to win and snatch your opponent's bag of holding, all for the price of a single spirit stone. Is that expensive? You're not buying medicine, you're buying your own life." Meng Hao stood. Perhaps his words had affected the wounded cultivator. He struggled backwards a few paces, hesitation showing on his face. "Damn it," roared the man's opponent, pointing his flying sword. "If you mess things up for me, then after I kill this guy I'll come after you." "I'll buy it," said the injured man, slapping his bag of holding and producing a spirit stone which he shot toward Meng Hao. Meng Hao snatched it out of the air and tossed back a blood coagulation pill. The cultivator grabbed it and placed it onto his shoulder wound. It stopped bleeding almost immediately. Refreshed, his spirit enlivened, he leaped back into the fight. Suddenly, his opponent retreated, blood flowing out from his wounded chest. Brother," said Meng Hao, switching customers. "Your opponent bought one of my blood coagulation pills and is now brimming with energy. I think if you don't buy one as well, you will be facing much peril. I don't just have blood coagulation pills. I also have skeletal relaxation pills to counter fatigue. I'll give you 1 each for 2 spirit stones. That will guarantee you healing and plenty of energy. You'll definitely be able to achieve victory." You, said the first man indignantly. He didn't know what to say. Was this pill cultivation workshop outlet pill boy here to help him or hurt him? He had just gone from a miserable situation to one of hope. Then, this happened. He attacked more incisively in his indignation. The scene playing out in front of him was exactly the same as when he had bought his medicine. "If you win, then you're actually spending someone else's spirit stones on the medicine," said Meng Hao enticingly, holding the medicinal pills in his hands. "It's really worth it." "I'll take it," said the man who had already bought a pill. "Damn it, give it to me," said the cultivator who had originally held the upper hand. Despite his hatred for Meng Hao, hearing the other man demand the medicine caused him to grit his teeth and open his mouth. "I'll give 3 spirit stones." "Brother, he's offering 3. If you can't top that, I'll have to give the medicine to him. Take care." "I'll give 4. "Brother, he's offering 4. 5. 6. "Damn it, I give up. Die." The cultivator who had originally held the upper hand turned on Meng Hao furious. At first, the battle had been quite simple, but once Meng Hao got involved, everything got complicated. He flew toward Meng Hao, murderous intent filling his face, clearly aiming to exterminate him. As he neared, Meng Hao's visage, meek, scholarly, and businesslike, suddenly changed, growing somber and stern. Just before the cultivator reached him, he took a step forward, his right palm slapping forward. Spiritual energy poured out with a bang. The cultivator flew back with a shriek, overwhelmed by the spiritual energy of Meng Hao's 3rd level of qi condensation. The attack had struck him unconscious. Meng Hao snatched his bag of holding, and then his somber, stern expression changed, and he was once again the weak scholar. All the onlookers were shocked. "Brother, I believe you just offered me 6 spirit stones," he said shyly, looking a bit embarrassed. The other cultivator's face paled, and his body trembled. He stared at Meng Hao with astonishment and terror. How could he ever have imagined that things would turn out this way? How could this apparently weak and feeble person have changed so much? It was almost as if what he had just witnessed was a dream. Chapter 12. Hello, Elder Sister Sue. The scene, which had attracted the attention of the other nearby cultivators, caused their expressions to change. Many seemed to be at a loss, unsure of exactly what had happened. But now, they all knew that Meng Hao was not someone to provoke. Even though they didn't know exactly what had happened, Meng Hao's trembling first customer did. His heart pounding madly, he slapped his bag of holding and produced 6 spirit stones, which he respectfully handed over. He regretted having hesitated in front of the pill cultivation workshop in the past. By fretting over his spirit stones at that time, he'd ended up with no medicine. And now, he didn't have any spirit stones to go buy anything for himself. Meng Hao accepted the spirit stones, produced a blood coagulation pill and skeletal relaxation pill, and gave them to the man. "Many thanks for your patronage," he said with a wide smile. "Come back again soon." Once again he looked weak and feeble, but to the cultivator standing in front of him he was a vicious beast in sheep's clothing. Trembling, the man made his exit. As he left, Meng Hao decided not to return to his spot on the rock. He grabbed the Pill Cultivation Workshop outlet banner and began to stroll about the public zone. He stopped next to two battling disciples, sticking the banner into the ground. "Brother, it seems you're injured," he said, stepping forward. "You also seem somewhat listless. You don't seem to be in the right state to be fighting." The two disciples stared at him in amazement. Having just seen him knock someone out, they hesitated, and at the same time both backed up a bit. "I happen to have some spirit refreshment pills from the Pill Cultivation Workshop. Take one, and you will be completely reinvigorated, your victory guaranteed. Since today is our opening day of business, it only costs 1 spirit stone." "How convenient." Meng Hao continued to walk forward, his face filled with sincerity. "I already have some medicinal pills," said the man he had been giving his sales pitch to. He slapped his grab of holding, and a spirit refreshment pill appeared, which he popped into his mouth. Upon seeing this, Meng Hao sighed. He had watched his first customer for some time before determining that he had no medicinal pills. With a light cough, he looked at the second man standing in front of him. The man gave a cold harumph, then produced his own medicinal pill and swallowed it, sighing inwardly. But Meng Hao wasn't disheartened. He circled back to the boulder, continuing to watch the two of them. As time passed, they seemed to be looking worse and worse off. Soon, it was clear they were out of medicinal pills, and the critical juncture in the fight had arrived. Victory and defeat would be decided. His spirits risen again, Meng Hao hefted the banner and approached them again. "Brothers, the moment of life or death has arrived. You don't have any medicinal pills left, but don't worry, I have some right here. At this critical juncture, buy one of my soul-congealing pills. It will restore your energy in a flash and even recover your spiritual energy. Brothers, you're not buying a medicinal pill, you're buying spiritual energy. Yo, you're injured." Meng Hao's words distracted the cultivators. A flying sword hit one of them in the arm, sending out a fountain of blood. He retreated backward with a scream. Meng Hao was even faster than him, following and continuing his speech, looked as weak and scholarly as ever. "Brother, now is the time, you're bleeding profusely. Quick, buy a blood coagulation pill. If you don't, the danger is just too great." "Get out of here," the man's opponent roared at Meng Hao. He charged his injured opponent. "Give me a pill," said the injured cultivator, his face pale. Retreating several paces, he gritted his teeth and pulled out a spirit stone. A blood coagulation pill shot from Meng Hao's hand onto the wound on the man's arm. The blood flow began to slow. He focused his attention, then leaped back into the fight. "Aya, brother, it seems you're out of medicinal pills. Look, I have plenty. Now that your opponent bought one, he's bursting with energy. But you're injured. Why don't you buy a blood coagulation pill?" "Oh no, you got slashed again. You must be really tired. Take it slow and don't be discouraged. Brother, I still have a skeletal relaxation pill. 1 spirit stone for 1 pill. You should buy pills quickly. The sages said spirit stones have a price, but a life is priceless." Meng Hao slowly circled them. Sure enough, they were out of medicinal pills, and soon they began buying. Feeling pressure from each other, they bought quite a few. The battle grew more serious. Their fighting today was more intense than 4 or 5 normal battles. Originally, it had been a fairly simple fight, but with the Pill Cultivation Workshop outlet here, things were complicated. With dangerous fighting comes injury. The two cannot be separated. Flop, flop. The two men had finally exhausted every scrap of energy. They dropped to the ground, unconscious, spirit stones spent, and medicinal pills eaten up. Even their magical items were destroyed in the battle, seemingly together along with their wits. How tragic. As far as Meng Hao was concerned, he had saved their lives, or at least 1 life. Hefting his banner, he once again strolled around the plateau and once again found 2 cultivators locked in devastating combat. From the look of it, even if they had healing medicine, it was gone by now. Eyes glistening, he stood the banner up next to the 2 of them. "Brothers, your complexions seem bad and you've received some serious injuries. But fear not, I have medicinal pills. 1 spirit stone buys 1 pill. Your recovery is guaranteed." "How come you aren't saying anything? Don't tell me you don't trust me. Just now another disciple bought some of my pills." The result for his opponent was death. Shortly, each of the men bought a pill, then again, and again, until they had no more spirit stones left. After much bitter battling, they ended their fight in a tie, with nothing to show for it except empty bags of holding. Meng Hao shook his head, picked up the banner, and found a new place to do business. By the time the sun set, Meng Hao had been everywhere in the public zone, selling medicinal pills. In the end, wherever he went, the battling would instantly cease, and the participants would leave. Eventually, Meng Hao stared out over an empty public zone. Contentedly patting his bag of holding, he left. It was late at night when he arrived at the Immortal's cave. He sat down cross-legged and excitedly began to take inventory of his spoils. 1, 2, he grew more and more excited as he counted. Altogether, I have 53, I'm rich. This method is much faster than robbing people. It's also much safer, no need for killing. I don't have many medicinal pills left, so tomorrow I'll go to the pill cultivation workshop and buy some more. If I want the business to do well, I should buy out all of this month's healing medicines. If I don't have enough spirit stones, I'll just buy as much as I can. The scarcer the pills, the easier they'll be to sell. Meng Hao opened the bag of holding he had taken from the unconscious cultivator. Inside were a few spirit stones, 2 spirit condensation pills, and a pink-colored medicinal pill. He held the pill up and examined it. He recognized it as one of the pill cultivation workshop's cosmetic cultivation pills, an expensive pill. It was worth about 10 spirit condensation pills and could be considered one of the most expensive products available. This pill is designed to maintain one's physical appearance. It would be a waste for me to use it on myself. He figured the previous owner must have been trying to ingratiate himself to a female disciple. Not thinking any more on the subject, he put the pill into his bag of holding. As he was looking down contentedly at all the spirit stones and medicinal pills, the main door of the Immortal's cave suddenly creaked and began to open. It happened so quickly, Meng Hao had no time to gather up all his spoils. A woman entered, surrounded by a halo of moonlight. She was beautiful but cold and expressionless. She wore a long silver robe that made it seem as if she had donned the moon itself. It was none other than the Reliant's inner sex elder sister Su. As she entered, moonlight fell on the spirit stones and pills before Meng Hao. A sliver of astonishment cut through her cold demeanor. "Greetings, elder sister Su," Meng Hao said, scrambling to his feet. His hand swept up the stones and pills. He stood there, embarrassed. Elder sister Su didn't speak. She just looked, nodded, then turned to leave. Looking surprised, Meng Hao followed. "Elder sister Su, you came. Why not stay?" "There's no need," she replied coldly. "I'm going into secluded meditation tomorrow and wanted to check on you." She looked him over, then left. Meng Hao felt embarrassed, regretting not collecting the stones faster. Then he'd look worse off, and perhaps she'd help more. At the same time, he felt a bit of warmth in his heart. Elder sister Su appeared cold and indifferent, but she had come here to see him, which meant she remembered him. His heart thumping, he slapped his bag of holding and produced the pink-colored medicinal pill. "I've wanted to thank you, elder sister Su. I saved spirit condensation pills to trade for this cosmetic cultivation pill. Please accept it. Only you are worthy of such a pill. From entering the sect, I've dreamed that you would stay young forever, eternally beautiful." Without a wink, he solemnly held out the pill. Elder sister Su stopped walking and looked back at him. She glanced silently at the pill in his hand, then accepted it. Even though spirit condensation pills are common in the sect, they are only effective up to the 5th level of chi condensation. We cultivators place much importance on our cultivation base. We live in the world of cultivation, a place where life and death hang in the balance. You can't be like this in the future. You may be intelligent, but you need to work more on your cultivation. This was the first time Meng Hao had heard elder sister Su speak so much. As she spoke, he nodded respectfully. "As long as elder sister Su likes it, I'm willing to trade for it," he said, lowering his head and blinking. He looked a bit shy. "This pill, I'll accept it this time, but next time don't trade your pills like this." She put the pill away, hesitated for a moment, then pulled out a pink-colored jade pendant which she handed to Meng Hao. "This is a magical item," she said. "You need to protect yourself." She began to walk down the mountain. "Many thanks, elder sister Su," said Meng Hao. "Would you allow me to accompany you while you walk? I haven't seen you for so long, and I have some questions regarding cultivation that I hope you can clear up for me." He knew that this was an important opportunity. This was the only person he had to rely on, so he needed to get close to her. If he could walk with her through the outer sect and be seen by others, perhaps fewer people would be willing to mess with him in the future. Elder sister Su hesitated. She was an indifferent person and usually didn't say much. She had never spent time with male sect members, and it felt a bit strange to have Meng Hao standing there next to her. She was about to refuse, but after he finished speaking, she thought bashfully of the cosmetic cultivation pill he had given her, and she nodded quietly. The moon shone down gently on the two of them as they walked. Just then, at the peak of the North Mountain, a tall old man stood up, clad in a gray robe. As he looked down on the scene, a look of admiration appeared on his face. Excellent, this pup Meng Hao isn't bad at all. He truly grasps the correct interpretation of the Reliance sect. He knows how to find someone to rely on, and he also knows that if he protects his relationship with that person, then he will always have someone to rely on. This was the same old man who had expressed admiration for Meng Hao on pill distribution day. The more he learned about Meng Hao, the more he liked him. Chapter 13. Manly Cao Yang. Elder Sister Su was like a tiger pelt worn while strolling the outer sect, immediately attracting attention. When disciples saw her with Meng Hao, strange expressions filled their faces, especially those who'd bought medicines from him that day. Hatred bloomed, then was held back. Those with higher cultivation bases didn't know what happened, but recognized Meng Hao and conjectured he wasn't to be trifled with. Actually, Meng Hao didn't know it, but he had become a rather famous person in the outer sect in the past 2 months. As far as he was concerned, the most important thing was getting through each day. Right now it was night, and not many disciples were about. Not even half of them saw the scene play out. Realizing that his opportunity was not easy to come by, and shouldn't be lost, Meng Hao prattled on with some of his best humble scholar's words. He led taciturn elder sister Su to the pill cultivation workshop, where the middle-aged man, both nervous and anxious, sold him all of the various healing pills at a very low price. It would take months to restock the amount of pills he took. They even went to the treasure pavilion. When elder sister Su stared ferociously at the shrewd-looking man, his face grew pale. He surreptitiously slipped a spirit stone to Meng Hao and indicated that he could exchange the copper mirror at any time. Meng Hao gave a cold harumph, looking detested, and told the man that he'd lost the mirror ages ago. The treasure pavilion brother laughed bitterly and apologized. He told him not to worry, that the mirror had been lost in the past and was always found again within 2 or 3 years. At the foot of the East Mountain, Meng Hao watched elder sister Su walk off into the distance, surrounded by moonlight. That was the first time he realized that she was actually incredibly beautiful, like some sort of immortal goddess. Too bad she's so cold, otherwise I would think about marrying her. He fantasized idly for a bit, then gave a few dry coughs and headed back to the immortal's cave. The night passed by uneventfully, and early the next day, as the first rays of dawn appeared, Meng Hao energetically made his way to the plateau. I'm just a sliver away from the peak of the 3rd level of qi condensation. It's too bad I don't have the right medicinal pills. Demonic cores aren't easy to get, and I would have to go to that black mountain, which is just too dangerous. As he walked, an idea began to form. My goal now is to collect spirit stones. Then, the next time I can get a demonic core, I will be able to make a massive leap of progress, if I can get to the 5th level of qi condensation. His heart began to thump, and his eyes shined with anticipation. Being of the 5th level in the outer sect makes you a kind of lord, and most importantly, you can use the wind walking technique. Meng Hao thought back to elder brother Wang Tengfei and how he was able to hover 7 inches above the ground, and his heart beat even faster. Soon the plateau appeared in front of him, and he hurried forward. Looking every bit the humble scholar, he sat down cross-legged on the boulder. Soon more and more cultivators appeared, including some who hadn't been present the day before. The sounds of battle filled the air, along with blood-curdling screams. Meng Hao scanned the scene, trying to pick out his first potential customer of the day. He didn't notice that in another part of the public zone, a man was carefully making his way through the crowd. The cultivator walked slowly, looking all around. Suddenly his gaze fell onto Meng Hao and his body trembled. He stopped walking. This was Meng Hao's first customer from the day before. He had personally witnessed Meng Hao knock down his opponent, then act bashful afterwards. He hadn't expected him to return today, yet there he was. How come he's still here? That swindler. His wares are simply too expensive. The cultivator felt both hatred and fear. Heaving a sigh, he was about to leave, when suddenly his eyes caught sight of a manly disciple entering the public zone. It's Cao Yang. He's at the peak of the 2nd level, just a step away from the 3rd. His cousin Lu Hong is the #1 disciple in the low-level public zone. Thanks to him, Cao Yang can bully people and use despicable tactics to hurt people when fighting. People get angry but won't say anything. If it were anyone else, people would have ganged up on him long ago. He didn't show up yesterday, so things went relatively smoothly. Today's going to be good. The cultivator moved a bit closer, convinced that Cao Yang would end up provoking the guy from the pill cultivation workshop outlet. Considering he hated both of them, he looked forward eagerly to their misery. Some of the nearby combatants caught sight of Cao Yang, and their expressions changed. They stepped aside quickly, afraid of incurring the wrath of the manly disciple. Cao Yang snorted coldly. He was tall, tough, and stocky. His cold, hard stare was intimidating, as if the low-level public zone was his own backyard. Other than 2 or 3 people who he didn't want to mess with, he looked down on everyone. Frowning, he wondered why he hadn't seen his good friend Zhao Wuging lately. This made his mood sour, so he stalked about looking for a newbie to steal medicinal pills from. Then his gaze fell upon Meng Hao, and the big banner sticking up next to him. At first, he had barely noticed him, but then he saw the gloating cultivator watching on in the distance, and his interest was piqued. "Go, go, quickly," said the cultivator under his breath. He suddenly realized that watching the fighting was a lot more interesting than participating in it. Perhaps his mumblings had some effect, because Cao Yang rolled his eyes and then strode over to Meng Hao. People hurried to get out of his way. Meng Hao sat on the boulder, looking as resolute as ever, preparing to hawk his medicines. But as he saw Cao Yang approaching, he realized he could not accomplish his goal. He raised his head, feeling a bit of pity. This man was no stranger to him. He was the violent man he had seen a few days ago. Meng Hao sat there, a weak scholar, looking bashful and a bit ardent. He said, "Brother, it's our second day in business. All pills are in stock and each one is essential for battle. Would you like to buy some?" Cao Yang looked him over but was unable to estimate his cultivation base. If a person's qi condensation level is below the 7th, then unless they intentionally emit spiritual energy, their cultivation base will be motionless, and it is impossible to see how powerful they are. Only at the 7th level of qi condensation does it become visible to others. Therefore, he had no way to know Meng Hao's level. "When I buy things, I don't need to spend money. Hand over all your medicinal pills and spirit stones. If you dally, I'll snap your neck." His eyes flashed, and his tone was utterly forceful and domineering. After all, this was the low-level public zone and everyone here revered him. His cousin was Lu Hong. As far as he was concerned, Meng Hao was nobody. Off in the distance, Meng Hao's first customer watched the proceedings eagerly. "Beat him to death, beat him to death," he said quietly. Even he didn't know which party he was referring to. "Brother," the sages said, "stealing is not good," Meng Hao said delicately. "Let's discuss. I'm running a business but haven't opened. How could I have stones already?" "Sages, on this plateau I am the sage," Cao Yang said, feeling more confident. "If I want to beat you, who stops me? If I want to cut you to pieces, who dare?" Assuming Meng Hao was scared, he laughed and stepped forward close now, eyes radiating insolence. "Brother, I didn't do anything to provoke you. Furthermore, I'm not in the public zone. Look, I'm outside the borders." Pulling a long face, Meng Hao stood up on the boulder, trying to speak reasonably. "You really can talk crap," said manly Cao Yang impatiently. "If I say you're inside, then you're inside." He stepped past the banner, then swiped his hand at Meng Hao. "What a bully!" When Cao Yang's hand moved, Meng Hao's countenance flickered, changing into a different person. As he moved forward, his right palm shot out. A bang sounded, then a horrific scream came from Cao Yang's mouth, followed by blood. His body flew back, his face filled with astonishment. His cultivation level was higher than yesterday's, so he didn't lose consciousness. But pain racked him. Even as he struggled to his feet, Meng Hao appeared and kicked him viciously. The sages said, "Taking things without paying courts death." "I told you I'm running a business and haven't opened. I don't have stones." As he spoke, he trampled Cao Yang ruthlessly. The man's shrill, miserable shriek sounded over the plateau, punctuating his words. He protected his head, rolling. Soon, footprints covered his robe. "I told you I was outside the public area, not inside," Meng Hao said furiously. The man's cries grew weak, soon unable to cry out. The onlooking cultivators sucked in their breath, watching Meng Hao rage. A few from the day before started to think they'd struck lucky. The one who understood things the most was yesterday's first customer. Looking at manly Cao Yang screaming and watching Meng Hao's fierce expression as he jumped up and down, he suddenly began to sweat and quiver. The longer he watched, the more he felt that Meng Hao was truly frightening and dangerous. It appeared that Cao Yang was about to lose consciousness. The shadow of death seemed to float over him. His vision began to grow dim. Then he rose up, his left hand trembling. In it was a spirit stone. I'll buy some medicine, he cried. He mustered all his strength to cry out as loud as possible, apparently afraid that Meng Hao wouldn't hear him. Meng Hao stopped, his foot in midair. His fierce expression flickered away, replaced with the innocent scholar S. With a genial smile, he took the spirit stone. Why didn't you say so earlier? He helped Cao Yang to his feet, brushing the dusty footprints off his robe. His manly body trembled, and he stared fearfully at Meng Hao. Looking at him, Cao Yang wanted to leave immediately, to get as far away as possible from the demon in human clothing. As of now, he was just like the cultivator from yesterday. Brother, looking at your current state, I think one medicinal pill will only help you temporarily. He gripped Cao Yang by the shoulders. He seemed to stop in consideration for a moment. You have a lot of enemies. Why don't you buy some more? Chapter 14, Threats. Upon hearing this, Cao Yang's body went stiff. Everyone backed up, looking at Meng Hao in dread. Buy some more, said Cao Yang, shaking. Were it not for Meng Hao holding him up, he would have toppled over. One pill, one spirit stone, said Meng Hao affably. He retrieved several anti-hemostasis pills from his bag of holding. I'm honest with all customers, brother. I won't take advantage of your misfortune to raise prices. The pill cultivation workshop outlet's reputation is quite good. Seeing all the pills, Cao Yang's face paled. The amiable expression on Meng Hao's face made his back grow cold, his heart trembling. He gritted his teeth. Brother, you can really tell the good from the bad. These are genuine pill cultivation workshop products. As he spoke, he produced some blood coagulation pills and held them out. Cao Yang looked at the medicinal pills with a start, then glanced bitterly at Meng Hao's bag of holding. He understood Meng Hao's intentions, and the blood drained from his heart. But his life mattered most. He took out more spirit stones and handed them over. Meng Hao took them with a smile, then placed the medicinal pills into Cao Yang's hand one by one. In a short period of time, the spirit stones in Cao Yang's bag of holding had been replaced by a pile of medicinal pills. Cao Yang's heart bled even more. Looking pained, he trembled. Then he saw that Meng Hao still held 5 pills in his hand, and a look of shock and desperation filled his face. Those other pills should be enough to help you recover. These 5 are for after that, to help you maintain your health. He spoke considerately as he gazed at Cao Yang. I don't have any left, I really don't, Cao Yang said, looking at Meng Hao about to cry. Meng Hao said nothing, looking as amiable as ever. Cao Yang's scalp tingled. Gritting his teeth and ignoring his own distress, he pulled out some magic items including flying swords, magic wands, spirit condensation pills, and the like. I have no spirit stones, only these things, he said desperately. Magic items are also acceptable, said Meng Hao, taking them and putting them into his bag of holding. Moments later, Cao Yang, carrying his bundle of medicinal pills, hobbled off, supported by the arms of some fellow disciples. Meng Hao patted his bag of holding contentedly, sold out by morning. He quit while ahead, collected his flag, and told the remaining cultivators he would return tomorrow. Conversations broke out as he strode down from the plateau. Half a month flashed by, and Meng Hao grew quite famous among the low-level disciples. They all knew of the pill cultivation workshop outlet. More talked of was the owner, a delicate-looking scholar with an explosive temper. Rumors spread. One afternoon, Cao Yang walked out of his house, face pale but wounds healed. The pills he'd bought from Meng Hao at an exorbitant price had proven quite effective. After half a month in hiding, today was his first day walking around. He hesitated, then made his way through the outer sect to a remote area and stopped before one building. Cao Yang requests an audience with elder brother Lu, he said, standing outside and clasping his hands in front of him respectfully. A man of about 30, wearing a green robe, sat cross-legged inside. He wasn't handsome but carried excessive arrogance. His eyes opened, studying Cao Yang. What transpired? He said coolly. Elder brother Lu, I was robbed a few days ago, Cao Yang blurted out. People said Lu was his cousin, but they weren't related. Lu usually meditated in seclusion and didn't care about Cao Yang. He knew Cao Yang only came when in trouble. Hearing his words, elder brother Lu seemed a bit annoyed. Who was it that robbed you? He asked coolly. It was an outer sect disciple named Meng Hao, replied Cao Yang. Meng Hao, elder brother Lu thought for a moment. He's ignorant and incompetent, said Cao Yang hatefully. But he opened a shop on the plateau, hawking medicinal pills to injured disciples. Hawking medicinal pills, elder brother Lu's eyes flickered. He's one of the most famous low-level disciples now. He forces people to buy from him. Everyone complains, despises him. He's aroused the wrath of heaven and earth. I beg elder brother Lu to administer justice." Anger covered Cao Yang's face. Elder brother Lu didn't care about Cao Yang's words, yet his eyes shone. "I reached this level robbing low-level disciples. How didn't I think to open a store?" He sighed and slapped his thigh. Cao Yang stared at the building, confused but didn't dare ask. Moments later, Lu sent him away with no promise of vengeance. The following dawn, Meng Hao headed to the plateau carrying his banner in good spirits. He'd grown accustomed to the path. At the boulder, he sat down. As soon as he appeared, the other cultivators' faces paled. For half a month, they'd been tormented by Meng Hao and completely dispirited. But if they didn't come, how else could they rob disciples? Killing outside this area wasn't permitted, so they had no choice. They usually stopped fighting as soon as Meng Hao showed up. But people's killing spirit would inevitably arise, animosities would be stoked. Even though Meng Hao's business had slowed, he still made profit. It's worth noting that since Meng Hao opened his shop, deaths dropped sharply. He used this as a key feature of his sales pitch. As usual, Meng Hao looked for potential customers. This method wasn't ideal. Shopkeepers in Yunji County had assistants. Even as the idea coalesced, he caught sight of a man in the distance, about 30, who looked extremely arrogant. In his hand he held a banner like Meng Hao's, with large characters written on it. Pill Cultivation Workshop Outlet Number 2. This was Lu Hong, the #1 disciple in the lower level, his cultivation base just a hair from the peak of the 3rd level. Meng Hao glanced at him and paid him no attention. There would always be imitators, though he wasn't pleased with the banner's name. The other cultivators looked at each other, then returned to fighting. An hour later, Meng Hao spotted 2 combatants and hurried over to plant his banner. Lu Hong hurried over and planted his. The combatants dripped with cold sweat. 2 powerful disciples standing and staring was more than enough to unnerve them. "Brother, buying a pill ensures safety," said Meng Hao. "1 spirit stone per pill. I treat all customers fairly." "Buy Lu's pills, they're just as effective," said Lu Hong. Murderous intent flashed in his eyes. The combatants trembled, lost all desire to fight, produced spirit stones, handed them to Lu Hong and raced off. Meng Hao frowned. This was robbery. If it continued, the public zone would empty. That wasn't his desire. By afternoon, Meng Hao had sold nothing since morning. Lu Hong, unconcerned with right and wrong, forced people to buy or attack them. Soon the plateau emptied. Lu Hong looked at the dozen spirit stones he'd acquired. Cool and indifferent outside, inside he burned with excitement. "This is a good business. I wouldn't have been mocked for robbing low-level disciples if I'd thought of this sooner. That Meng Hao irritates me." He'd come to imitate Meng Hao's model. Now that he'd tasted profit, he wanted monopoly. He looked murderously at Meng Hao. "I'll practice a few more days, then kill him." The next day, thanks to Lu Hong's powerful reputation, few showed up. Those who did hadn't been present before and had to buy. Meng Hao wouldn't conduct business like Lu Hong, so he sold nothing. Lu Hong's murderous intentions grew. By the 3rd evening, as Meng Hao exited, he heard Lu Hong's arrogant voice. The few present all heard. "If I see your banner tomorrow, I'll cripple your cultivation base." Meng Hao stopped. He said nothing, but his eyes filled with cold power. He stalked off, returning to the immortal's cave. "You copied me," said Meng Hao, eyes fierce. "Stole my business like a turtle dove stealing a magpie's nest, then threatened to cripple my cultivation base." Meng Hao pushed open the stone door to the 2nd room. Thick spiritual energy poured out. He sat cross-legged. He absorbed months of accumulated energy. As dawn approached, his eyes opened, flashing. He'd broken through to the peak of the 3rd level, now just a step from the 4th. But that step wouldn't be easy. Higher cultivation bases were harder to improve, especially the 5th and 7th levels, notorious bottlenecks. Meng Hao gritted his teeth and opened his bag of holding. He took out all his spirit condensation pills and used the copper mirror to duplicate more. Spirit condensation pills had limited use, but sufficient quantity had some effect. Each duplication reduced efficacy. "If I don't cripple him first, he'll destroy me tomorrow." Without hesitation, he swallowed the pills. His spiritual energy lacked depth. As the pills dissolved, his body shook. He felt his cultivation base erupt like a flood. His mind hummed. When things cleared, his eyes glittered, but he still hadn't reached the 4th level. He ground his teeth, duplicated more pills, and swallowed them. Once, twice, 3 times. His mind vibrated as if being smashed by waves. Then a bang, his eyes blurred. Massive filth oozed from his pores. His vision cleared, his body cleansed. After an hour, his eyes glittered and his mind was clear. The fourth level of chi condensation. His cultivation base roiled like a massive river. As he rotated it, it sounded like a roaring tempest. Calm, he retrieved 5 flying swords from his bag, spoils from the past half-month, all treasure pavilion products, standard issue. He also had other magical items he'd procured. He sighed, closed his eyes, and meditated until daybreak. After entering the sect, I had no choice but to rob some people to improve my cultivation base. I didn't want to hurt too many, so I started a business. But now my business is stolen and I'm threatened with crippling. That's pushing things too far. At dawn, Meng Hao opened his eyes, left the cave, washed, and headed for the plateau. Chapter 15. Decisive Attack. Dawn, the plateau. After months of Meng Hao's hawking and days of Lu Hong's domineering, few cultivators were present and fewer still this early. Only 2 or 3 sat cross-legged. When Meng Hao arrived, they opened their eyes and sighed inwardly, wondering when things would return to normal. Moments later, they gaped. Meng Hao didn't enter the plateau but sat outside, cross-legged, eyes closed and unmoving. They looked at each other, remembered something, and began to gloat. Time passed into late morning. More cultivators arrived, all noticing Meng Hao's unusual behavior. Everyone guessed what was happening. Intrigued, no one fought. Elder brother Lu's threat worked. Meng Hao's too scared to hawk goods. Must be, elder brother Lu's the #1 disciple. If he says beat it, you beat it. Who'd have thought this guy was so scared for his own skin? He only bullies people weaker. Yet he didn't bring his banner, so he thinks Lu will let him off. Many were like this. They never complained when robbed by someone powerful, but if someone weak and kind took items through business, they complained endlessly. Lu Hong had been powerful for a while. From his early vicious attacks to now, forcing business upon people, everyone was helpless. Many even thought he'd grown gentler. Meng Hao, new to the sect, wasn't very powerful or arrogant. So though his business was gentle, everyone complained relentlessly. Meng Hao heard them all, his expression neutral. His reason for meditating outside wasn't fear, but rather that his cultivation base had reached the 4th level of chi condensation. He couldn't enter even if he wanted. Someone appeared at the mountain's base. A man in a green robe, about 30, incredibly arrogant. Lu Hong, slowly approaching with clasped hands. Meng Hao's eyes opened, shining brilliantly. He stood, slapped his bag of holding. A white sword appeared, its aura glistening with cold pressure. He charged forward, the sword aura flying at Lu Hong. Conversation erupted. Everyone was amazed at Meng Hao's fearlessness. Was he really going to challenge the #1 low-level disciple? He's going to battle Lu Hong. They were inevitable. Meng Hao hurt Cao Yang and Lu wrecked his business. I never expected Meng Hao would attack first. He doesn't know his limits. Lu's been at the 3rd level for years. Meng Hao will lose. As Meng Hao dashed forward, Lu Hong's eyes glittered. He planned to take Meng Hao's head, and now his opponent had taken the initiative. Helpful. He snorted, his body turning into a rainbow as he sped toward Meng Hao. His hand slapped his bag of holding and a purple flying sword appeared. The sword radiated golden purple with a diameter of approximately 30 meters, accompanied by a piercing whistle. It's the purple Yang sword. Right, Lu got it from the sect for special service, mystically sharp. 2 people, 1 mountain. At the foot, they charged each other. A reverberating roar. Lu Hong's expression changed, blood spurted from his mouth. He flew back several paces, staring at Meng Hao in shock. 4th level of chi condensation. Meng Hao looked embarrassed. He just entered the 4th level and didn't grasp it firmly. He couldn't release its full power. His attack was simple but ferocious, yet cracks already marked his sword. His opponent's weapon was magically sharp and damaged his own. Though inexperienced in battle, half a year of hunting beasts had sharpened his reactions. Plateau observations had taught him much. As Lu Hong retreated, Meng Hao advanced, slapping his bag. Another sword appeared. The 2 sword auras merged and shot at Lu Hong. His fingers flickered, flames congealing around him. 3 paces away, a flame serpent appeared, thick as his arm, half a meter long. It twisted, roared, and shot at Lu Hong. Lu Hong spat blood, moving backward anxiously. His eyes flashed with anger. Though he had magical items and Meng Hao had just entered the 4th level, the battle's outcome was uncertain. Killing Meng Hao would boost his prestige. Murderous intent flickered. His fingers danced, a glistening water globe appearing. He threw it. It exploded into countless water arrows shooting at the flame serpent. His fingers moved, the purple Yang sword slamming into Meng Hao's 2 swords. A booming crash. Meng Hao's swords crumbled. The purple yang sword followed the water arrows at the flame serpent. The flame serpent roared and vanished into dust. Water arrows became mist. The purple yang sword returned to Lu Hong. Its golden-purple aura dimmed, a crack on its blade, yet still sharp. Fourth level chi condensation with no good weapon. Killing you won't be hard. How many times can you use flame serpent without the fifth level? Lu Hong was worried about his sword but smiled broadly outside. He didn't step back. Your sword is sharp, but how many times can you use it? I have more swords too. As for the fifth level, Elder Sister Sue's pills will get me there soon. His face was calm, but inside Meng Hao was very nervous. His first real battle. He slapped his bag. 3 swords appeared and shot at Lu Hong. Lu Hong looked worried but didn't hesitate. He roared. Meng Hao's 3 swords met the purple yang sword. Bang, bang, bang. The 3 shattered. The purple yang sword's aura dimmed by half. More cracks appeared on its surface. Lu Hong looked incredibly worried. Before he could act, Meng Hao slapped his bag again. 3 more swords appeared, whizzing through the air. He waved, another flame serpent congealed. The onlookers were shocked. Meng Hao put Lu in a tight spot. He's at the 4th level of chi condensation. He entered not long ago and he's already at the 4th level. How did his cultivation progress so fast? What did Elder Sister Sue give him? Damn it, if I had someone like that, maybe I'd progress so fast too. The crowd buzzed, jealousy filling their faces. Lu Hong's face changed. He retreated, grinding his teeth. His fingers flickered. Another water globe appeared. He never imagined his opponent had so many items. A boom. Meng Hao's 3 swords broke along with the flame serpent. The purple yang sword's aura grew dark, but Lu Hong gasped when Meng Hao produced 3 more swords expressionlessly. Another explosion. The 3 swords broke. The purple yang sword let out a plaintive cry, then crumbled. Lu Hong's eyes went wide. He staggered backward, spitting blood, glaring at Meng Hao. Meng Hao showed no emotion, but inside was extremely nervous. Each sword cost a spirit stone. He waved his hand. Another flame serpent appeared, roaring and twisting around him, flying at Lu Hong. Meng Hao shot toward the retreating Lu Hong like a rainbow, the flame serpent with him. Another sword appeared, a meter from Lu Hong, its aura glittering with death. "You forced me," shouted Lu Hong, hair in disarray, clothes spattered with blood. Never had he been in such a bad position since entering the sect. His eyes burned. With a growl, he tore open his robe, revealing a jadeite bottle gourd. He poured all his spiritual energy into it. The gourd glowed brightly, a droning sound filling the air. In the air before him, a massive gourd appeared, many times larger than the one around his neck, about half the size of a person. Actually, Lu Hong's cultivation base wasn't strong enough to fully activate it. The flickering image seemed ready to dissipate. Before it could finish, Lu Hong spat blood, retreated, his face deathly pale. Yet he still glared at Meng Hao with murderous anger. Though incomplete, the pressurized energy made Meng Hao's expression change. The illusory gourd roared and a thick green beam shot from its mouth, slamming through the flame serpent and inundating Meng Hao. "This is Wang Tengfei's item. It activates at the 4th level, but you're looking to die, so you forced me to use it early and I paid the price. You're dead now." Lu Hong's laugh died in his throat. He felt struck by lightning. He stared in astonishment. The green beam slammed into Meng Hao, pushing him back 10 meters. A pink shield surrounded him. When the beam dissipated, the shield shrank into a pink jade pendant. Cracks covered it. He gripped it, cold sweat dripping, fear in his heart. Without Elder Sister Sue's pendant, the gourd's power would have destroyed him. "What is that item?" Meng Hao looked at the jadeite gourd hanging from Lu Hong's neck. Severely injured, Lu Hong watched as Meng Hao leaped forward and snatched the gourd, putting it immediately into his bag. "Wang Tengfei gave that to me. If you steal it, you'll face his wrath." Lu Hong's countenance sank, trembling. He was astonished the gourd was ineffective. "Sect rules say if you take something, it's yours," said Meng Hao. The gourd was too powerful. He wouldn't give it back. Enmity had been created. He stared coldly at Lu Hong. "This isn't the public zone," said Lu Hong, eyes filled with despair and fear, raising his voice so everyone heard. "If you kill me, it violates sect rules." "I won't violate sect rules, but you said yesterday you'd cripple my cultivation base. Today, I'll do the same to you." Calm, he raised his hand and sent a sword piercing Lu Hong's dantian, smashing his cultivation base. He stood there amidst Lu Hong's screams, casting fear and awe across the plateau. Chapter 16, Come Here. The surrounding cultivators' faces paled. Meng Hao's attack was decisive, and filled with ferocious hatred he didn't notice himself. This was becoming a trend. In their eyes, Meng Hao was now the plateau's #1, perhaps the outer sect's highest figure. Cultivators looked back over the past half-month. With such a high cultivation base, Meng Hao could have robbed freely. His customers weren't happy, but he treated them mildly. Now they looked at him with awe. No fighting occurred on the plateau. After Meng Hao left, news of Lu Hong's broken cultivation base spread like wind. Mention of Wang Tengfei's name spread it faster. By nightfall, everyone knew what happened. Everyone knew who Meng Hao was. The East Mountain, wreathed in colorful clouds, was the sect's tallest mountain and the inner sect's base. It had the most spiritual energy and was where sect leader He Luohua meditated in seclusion. In the sect's heyday, the four peaks were fully occupied by the inner sect with abundant 7th-level disciples. Now only the East Mountain was occupied, by disciples Su and Chen. The others were abandoned. On the East Mountain was an immortal's cave much larger than Meng Hao's, the finest in the entire outer sect, rivaling inner sect dwellings. Inside was a spirit spring that was anything but dried up. It gurgled out dense, fragrant spiritual energy. Of course, among all the disciples of the Reliance outer sect, the only one qualified to occupy such a place was the blessed Wang Tengfei. He sat cross-legged in white robes, his face placid, looking at Lu Hong kneeling before him. Lu Hong's face was pale, his body trembling. Meng Hao had destroyed his cultivation base. "I beg elder brother Wang to administer justice," he said breathlessly. "He's incredibly cunning. He'll flee the sect." Every time Lu Hong saw Wang Tengfei, he felt the other man was perfect, beyond ordinary. That feeling had grown over 2 years as Wang Tengfei's cultivation base grew stronger. "If he flees," Wang said after a moment, perfect and resplendent, "it violates sect rules. I'll have him killed." His amiable smile made anyone like him, his light tone making him seem nobler. Lu Hong had nothing more to say. He kowtowed, face filled with entreaty, body trembling. "Very well," said Wang Tengfei. "His methods are vicious. An example must be made. I'll speak with elder brother Shangyuan, careful not to offend elder sister Su. Meng Hao shall cripple his own cultivation base, distribute his treasures, and sever an arm and leg." His apology. He spoke as if he controlled every matter in the sect, as if with one word he could command Meng Hao's cultivation base and limbs. His smile was amiable, perfect, flawless. "My profound thanks, this fellow, he's just filled with viciousness." Lu Hong ground his teeth, his heart filled with enmity. "Then I shall expel him from the sect," said Wang Tengfei coolly, as if he were talking about an incredibly insignificant matter. "He can go off into the wilds, and things will take their natural course." At that moment, Meng Hao sat cross-legged in his immortal's cave, looking at the jadeite gourd with a dark expression. Breaking through the 4th level, then that battle, he'd consumed almost all his spiritual energy. At least he had the gourd. Everything seemed smooth since entering the sect, but mostly due to his quick wit and foresight. Without those, his life would have been in danger at his first pill distribution day. He got the copper mirror and its power. Then elder brother Zhao lusted after his cave. If he hadn't died, Meng Hao's situation would have been bleak, losing everything. That was his first kill. Without his shop business, he wouldn't be here. But the wind propelling him held hidden hardships he didn't foresee. Everything was like thunder before a storm. Meng Hao looked at the jadeite gourd, thinking of Wang Tengfei, the outer sect's blessed #1 disciple. Thinking of his perfection, Meng Hao felt an entire mountain's pressure rest on him. He could barely breathe. He wanted to flee, but he knew he wasn't a servant, a sect disciple. Fleeing violated sect rules would alert the elders, mean certain death. If I'd known Lu Hong had Wang Tengfei backing him, determination filled his eyes. "I'd do the same. If I hadn't attacked, he'd have killed me. He forced me, not the other way. The grudge was inevitable. Even if I'd let Cao Yang rob me, this would have happened. I couldn't prevent people from coveting my business." His eyes flashed around the cave. "Too bad elder sister Su is meditating in seclusion." After crippling Lu Hong, he'd gone looking for her. But the inner sect said parties in seclusion weren't to be disturbed. This gourd, it was incredibly powerful. When he tested it, it exploded with might that made his heart thump. Maybe he could finally break through to the 5th level. Strangely, it couldn't fit in his bag, it had to hang on his body. He had no more spirit stones, he'd used all for the 3rd level. Otherwise, he'd duplicate it. "This sect isn't the mortal world. It's easy to die here. If I hand over the gourd, maybe I prevent disaster." He didn't wish to, but seemed to have no choice. Even as he wrestled with this, a sinister voice drifted through the sealed door. "I am Shangyuan Song. here to assist elder brother Wang in meting out justice. Come out and kowtow." The dark voice filled the cave with icy shadow. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. He wasn't surprised, he'd anticipated this. He was silent a moment, then slowly said, "It's late. Elder brother, just say what you need to say." "How haughty," said the voice, displeased. A cold snort rang out. Meng Hao said nothing. "If you won't open the door, I convey elder brother Wang's instructions. Meng Hao, you haven't focused on cultivation. You've disturbed the low-level public zone, aroused complaints, used vicious methods. You're young, so death isn't warranted. Hand over your treasures, cripple your cultivation base, and leave. You're no longer a reliant sect disciple." Meng Hao's face grew somber. At the final words, indignation filled him. "Elder brother Wang's decrees don't follow sect rules," said Meng Hao. "Elder brother Wang's words are the sect rules," said the person outside, indifferent. "Tomorrow is pill distribution day. You'll kowtow to Lu Hong and apologize, then await punishment." He flicked his sleeve and left. Meng Hao sat in contemplation. Time passed toward dawn. His eyes were bloodshot. He didn't know what to do. His opponent wanted the gourd and his death. Under guise of mercy, he'd cripple his base, sever an arm and leg, then expel him. He'd be hopeless. What should I do? His fists clenched, eyes red. He felt weak and helpless for the first time, wishing he were more powerful. If so, he wouldn't be bullied. He thought more. Flee, determination filled his eyes. He lifted his head and walked from the cave. But he stopped, hesitating. No, this isn't right. He lowered his head in thought, then turned back, sitting cross-legged. The following morning, Meng Hao opened his bloodshot eyes. He'd spent the night in contemplation, not practicing. His base was too low. He couldn't think of any option but fleeing. But his opponent surely considered he'd do that. Fleeing meant death and traitor's shame. Bells rang out in the distance. Pill distribution day had arrived. Meng Hao knew that even if he tried to hide away in the immortal's cave, catastrophe would still befall him. The law of the jungle. My problems stem from my low base. A true man doesn't take suffering, he does something. He sighed. Pushed to the brink with no maneuver room, he calmed himself and straightened his clothing. He looked around the cave, opened the main door, and stared at blue sky and emerald trees. Time passed, then he stepped forward. A few steps later, a person walked from the jungle, staring coldly. "You didn't flee, not stupid after all." Xianxia Song's voice. He had stayed behind. Meng Hao had seen him before with Wang Tengfei by the East Mountain. His grandfather was a sect elder. He stayed to watch if Meng Hao fled. If so, he'd have been branded a traitor and forfeited his life. Meng Hao turned toward the outer sect. Xianxia Song laughed coldly. Actually, he'd left the previous night to call on his grandfather Xianxia Ziu. Even if Meng Hao had fled at night, he'd have been entrapped and suffered horrible death. Xianxia Song followed the entire way. At the outer sect, disciples saw them, their faces showing various expressions. All seemed to expect this. None took pity on Meng Hao. Most jeered. Soon he reached the square. Dragon-carved pillars glowed brightly. Disciples filled the area. Off in the distance, white-robed Wang Tengfei was surrounded by disciples. Sunlight made his white robe shine like snow, his long hair trailing past his shoulders. He looked perfect, flawless, like an immortal from a painting. His bearing made people want to know him. He truly looked like a chosen. He chatted amiably with everyone, regardless of cultivation base. He nodded, gave cultivation tips, earning utmost respect. Female disciples seemed infatuated with him, needing to be at his side, his every action driving them crazy. Even the sect elders gazed on him, fondly, with admiration. Wherever Wang Tengfei went, he became the center of attention. Good looks, gentleness, perfection, they melded into a dazzling glow that burned Meng Hao's eyes. He clenched his fists. As disciples arrived and pill distribution concluded, cordial Wang Tengfei didn't look at Meng Hao once. He knew Meng Hao watched, but it meant no more than if a cricket looked at him. He wouldn't stoop to return the gaze. When everything concluded and the pillars grew dark, Wang Tengfei's gentle voice filled the air. "Come here." Simple words, but the instant they rang out, everyone looked at Wang Tengfei as his gaze fell on Meng Hao. Chapter 17. I shall rely on myself. Meng Hao stood stiffly, staring at Wang Tengfei. He felt every disciple's gaze. Cultivators next to him moved away, creating space. Aloneness filled his heart, as if the world were forsaking him. Wang Tengfei's utterance had pushed him over existence's edge. No one spoke. The disciples just looked. Wang Tengfei was too famous. His words reverberated in everyone's hearts. No surprise, yesterday's news had spread. Many expected this. The sect elders remained unmoved on the high platform, gazing down. "Sect rules state what you take is yours," said Meng Hao, forcing each word out. He knew his voice was weak against Wang Tengfei's might provoke attack, but he spoke. If he handed over the gourd with tearful entreaties, Wang Tengfei couldn't reject the apology, not before everyone. He might punish him but leave his base intact. Begging, kowtowing, admitting wrong, accepting insult, he'd escape danger completely. But Meng Hao would never do it, call him stupid and crazy, but never. Though facing dire calamity, he would never beg, never humiliate himself, never crawl and plead. Never. This was his spirit, his integrity. Some things matter more than life or death, dignity, that noble, unbendable, unbreakable spirit. He spoke first, one word at a time. His opponent was mountain-like Wang Tengfei, dire calamity, the whole world against him. Alone, no one to rely on, yet he had his dignity. He lifted his head and spoke. This was Meng Hao. His words galvanized his energy. "Death. What is death? I haven't even lived to see 17. Humiliate me, cripple my cultivation, but you can't make me yield, can't break my spirit." His voice rang clear and distinct, yet lonely. His bitterness was plain. His hands clenched into fists. No one sensed it, but Wang Tengfei's words came with an invisible attack trying to force Meng Hao to collapse. His body seemed to disintegrate, bones to shatter. Massive pressure tried to force him to kneel. His body shook. He gritted his teeth and stood, ignoring bone pain. "That treasure is mine," said Wang Tengfei with a friendly smile. "It belongs to whoever I give it to. I didn't give it to you." His words were friendly but filled with menace. Smiling, he walked forward, waving a finger at Meng Hao. Wind surged in the square, screaming in circles, flapping robes. Meng Hao stood still as if the air had become death, binding him. He couldn't move. Suddenly, a pink jade pendant flew from his clothes, hovering before him. A pink shield appeared, protecting him. Wang Tengfei looked affable. His movements seemed casual. He took a second step and waved a second time. A bang! The shield warped, twisted, flickered 3 times, then shattered. The pendant, elder sister Su's gift, broke into pieces. Blood poured from Meng Hao's mouth, pressure increasing. He gritted his teeth, unwavering, trembling, unwilling to yield. An exceedingly dark look filled his eyes. His fists clenched harder, fingernails digging deep into his palms. Wang Tengfei took a third step with his usual kind smile, landing before Meng Hao. He waved his finger a third time. An invisible hand ripped open Meng Hao's clothing, revealing the jadeite gourd. The hand snatched it, wrenching it away and depositing it in Wang Tengfei's palm. Meng Hao's face paled. He coughed blood, trembling yet unable to move. Blood veins appeared in his eyes, his hands clenched incredibly tight. He felt fingernails digging into flesh. Blood dripped from between his fingers. "Cripple your cultivation base, sever an arm and leg, leave the sect." Wang Tengfei smiled, his warm voice reverberating. He extended a finger for the 4th time, pointing at Meng Hao's chest. Meng Hao glared back. He'd only spoken once, never a second sentence. He didn't scream or roar, silent. Blood veins appeared in his eyes, his fists clenched tighter. His fingernails snapped, lodged in his flesh. Blood dripped like rain. Everything grew silent, people's faces filled with derision. Ridicule cut him away, pushing him outside everything. Yet he would not submit. What was physical pain? As Wang Tengfei's finger fell, a sound rang from a distant peak. Gentle power appeared next to Meng Hao, blocking his finger. A bang! Wang Tengfei flicked his sleeve and glanced aside. An old man stood there in a long gray robe. Mottled brown marks on his face, tall and big yet not mighty looking. The same man who'd admired Meng Hao twice before. "You've taken the treasure back," said the old man. "Let the matter drop." He looked at Meng Hao, silent, blood dripping from his fists, then sighed and looked back. "Since it is Grand Elder Aoyang interceding, Junior will give in." Wang Tengfei smiled, indifferent. He'd only spoken to Meng Hao twice. Sunlight illuminated his elegant figure, long hair, perfect demeanor. As far as he was concerned, Meng Hao didn't match an insect. He'd already put him out of his mind. Meng Hao, covered in blood, was like a bug against an elephant, crushable in a step. To Wang Tengfei, what had happened was nothing. Not contempt, just total disregard. With a smile, he walked back into the crowd, chatting indifferently as if nothing happened. He gave pointers to lower disciples, emanating cordiality. Female disciples seemed obsessed. Others viewed him with utmost respect. Everyone ignored Meng Hao, having forgotten his existence. Meng Hao was antithetical to Wang Tengfei. Covered in blood, clothes in shreds, a sorry figure. Meng Hao sensed what Wang Tengfei thought, not scorn but disregard. As Wang left, Meng Hao felt somewhat relaxed, though his body hurt terribly. Gritting his teeth, he saluted Grand Elder Aoyang. Without another word, he coughed blood, clenched his jaw, and slowly walked off. His feet felt ready to disintegrate. Soaked with sweat, every step caused heartrending pain. Like a whipped dog, he disappeared. Grand Elder Aoyang seemed about to speak, but decided not to, simply watching him depart. Meng Hao returned to his cave. The instant the door closed, he collapsed unconscious. Wang Tengfei was at the peak of the 6th level. No comparison. Refusing to yield and kneel, Meng Hao had received internal injuries. He was comatose 2 days, then opened his eyes racked with pain. Difficult to move, he lurched into sitting position. His hands burned painfully as if skin was stripped. Gasping, he sat quietly in the cave. Time passed. He looked at his hands. 10 broken fingernails protruded from his palms. Scabs had formed after 2 days, but struggling to sit, they broke and blood oozed out. Expressionless, Meng Hao looked at them. After a while, he began digging the broken fingernails out, one by one. Blood flowed from his mangled palms, dripping to the ground, filling the cave with gore scent. Throughout, his expression didn't change. It was as if the hands weren't his. Ruthlessness was clearly visible. He looked at the 10 bloody fingernails. After a while, he collected them and placed them next to his stone bed. He'd look at them daily, a reminder of his humiliation. One day, that humiliation would be repaid in double. He hadn't spoken long, but now he opened his mouth. "I shall rely on myself." The hoarse voice barely sounded like his own.